Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the very special Everybody Knows He Lost Except Fat Ass edition of the Jim Cornette Experience, where today we will go through a complete compendium of people who have lost, are lost, lost the plot, or otherwise caused the loss of an audience for professional wrestling. And to join me in this, he is my cohort and co-host, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the silent partner in Four Seasons Wrestling Federation and Lawnmower Repair Service, your friend and mine, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. Remember, right across the street, Dildo Mania, twice a month.
Actually, every third Wednesday is gangbang night over there. At least that's from the flyer on the window. Last time I was up there. Anyway, so...
I hear they have a great buffet.
Yeah, tip the veal and try the waitress. Once again, we're put in the position of being the most trusted news source based in America these days. Our international fans in the cult of Cornette, they turn to this podcast now, not just for scintillating wrestling conversation, but also the news, the straight talk, the unvarnished truth, because you don't know who to believe these days. And so for folks around the world, President Pigshit still, what is today as we speak? It's been how many days since the election? It's Groundhog Day.
It's been over a week since the election, but it was Saturday, I believe, when they
Saturday. Well, it's been 9 days. Saturday it was called. He still won't tap out. He still will not admit that he lost. It's only a flesh wound. Nothing to see. It's embarrassing now. The little man baby, the little man baby is pitching his fit to have an out. Like every, wrestling heel, he's got to have something to bitch about. So he's wanting his out to be, there was all kinds of voter fraud. And he's milking this until the last possible minute. They're going to certify the election on December 5th by, I believe, law or statute or whatever. And at that point, yes, Biden gets these electoral votes and he's the winner officially. And they're saying now the leaks from the White House is that Trump's going to just drag this out until then and then announce that, well, it was rigged, but I'm not going to fight it. Which a piece of shit to the very end. Who would have known?
He's not a man.
Who would have known we can add sore loser to criminal, ignorant, lying, egomaniacal, racist, sexist, self-centered ignoramus? Who would have known that he'd be a whiny little bitch on the way out? You know what he's going to do now? It's going to be an insurance scam next. He's going to slip and fall in the West Wing. Watch and see. Somebody's going to mop the floor. One of those no good Mexicans that are rapists and criminals. He's going to tell the story. He mopped the floor, left the floor wet. He slipped and fell. It's going to be, instead of the man who came to dinner, it's going to be the president who came to dinner. Now he's in the Oval Office in a body cast. They can't move him. The Monty Woolley role will be played by Donald Trump. Mr. White, instead of Mr. Whiteside, he'll be Mr. White House. Right now, the classic film buffs are just blowing snot everywhere.
He's raising money off this. And from what I read, the money's going right to him and the RNC. Like, there's no legal defense. So the money, it's just a money grab.
Hey, the people that would give money to defend him legally or in any other fashion deserve to be parted with their money. I'm just sorry we couldn't somehow funnel it into a legitimate cause. But
see, he can't. He's stuck. He can't. Even though psychologically he can't admit what everyone knows. He doesn't realize it makes him look weak that he doesn't admit it. He thinks it'll make him look weak to admit it. But beyond that, it would hurt him with his base if he came out and told the truth and said, it was a hard-fought election. Joe Biden won. I congratulate him. And I look forward to handing the keys over to Joe Biden. And we will continue the battle, but I won't be in the Oval Office. No, instead it has to be this. Because if he went the other way, people would give up on him. He has to be this character. You know, there was a guy, did you see this guy? Because a bunch of people tweeted it at me this morning. Maybe you too. Jared Yates Sexton. You ever hear of this guy?
I have not heard of it. Was he the sandwich guy, Jared?
No. Let's not.
Okay,
no. Let's not label him with that.
Not him.
Can I read you a couple of these tweets? It was interesting.
Please do.
Again, I've never heard of this guy before. All right, we need to talk about Donald Trump, this bad faith, haphazard coup, and how professional wrestling explains what's going on and why this grift could become incredibly dangerous. I wrote a thread the other day about how this coup is both legitimate and a total grift, but something people need to realize is that we're watching the rhetorical strategies of professional wrestling play out in politics and our country. Here's an explanation. Professional wrestling is an industry of grift. It's about open and closed system of power and knowledge. It is divided between smarts, people who understand the grift, and marks, people who are being manipulated. Right now, this coup is about the same system. While we're on here talking about Trump's media moves, his staff looking for other jobs, and Republicans admitting they know Biden won, Trump's supporters are awash in declarations of stolen elections, fundraising schemes. It's smarts and marks. What Trump is doing right now is called a work. A work means people are involved in a scam together and know they're playing roles. They even engage in feuds and grudges as a means of bilking people out of their money. Real moments are shoots. We're in a work right now. And it goes on from there, but it's interesting stuff here. Yeah.
Well, maybe old Donald spent too much time around Vince. Here's the thing. We all expected this. Bill Maher has been saying for 4 years he wasn't going to leave, or was going to try not to leave, or was going to be dragged out kicking and screaming. And he's still, by the way, also he's replacing all the top people at the Pentagon. The people that would be in charge of dragging him kicking and screaming, probably. But we all knew he wasn't going to leave, and he wasn't going to man up, and he wasn't not leave faithfully and politely, and he wasn't going to man up, and he wasn't going to admit anything, whatever. He's going to whine about everything and say it was crooked. But the other elected Republican politicians that still cannot come out publicly because he'll get mad at them, and then they're scared of losing his sucker supporters. They oh shit. His sucker supporters, if we come out and tell the truth to the American people, will not vote for us. Good, I say, but that's why they're so fucking scared and gutless. They can't tell President Pigshit that he's got no clothes, so they're just standing there staring at his dick with their dicks in their hands until he gives this up or admits something publicly or says something publicly that gives them the opportunity to say, okay, yes, no, nothing was rigged, everything was fine, and we lost. And that's ridiculous that grown adult men who are supposedly shaping public policy cannot publicly say that Joe Biden's going to be the next president yet because the fucking petulant little child loser in the White House would get mad at them and tell his hillbilly, redneck, gullible rube supporters not to vote for them either. None of them should be voted for. At this point, you've got world leaders calling Joe Biden's cell phone because the State Department won't put calls through because he's not official yet. And slow walking the transition. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Biden's already done more this week than Trump ever did at all, naming actual real doctors, scientists, and experts to a panel to do something about this. And he can't even get the goddamn presidential daily briefings because Trump won't admit he's official till they certify it December the 5th. And not only national security with a bunch of flunkies in charge of the Pentagon, because now Trump's firing all the upper Pentagon people that didn't agree with him or said something about him publicly. So now you've got fucking middle-level file clerks running the fucking Pentagon. And our reputation in front of the world, as everybody in the world knows that Donald Trump lost, but Donald Trump won't admit it, and other people are acting like that he has a point. in our government, so we look like lunatics. We look like idiots to elect the guy, and now they're laughing at us on his way out. He's firing up stupid people. I don't mind if the Republicans think the elections are crooked, so stay home. That would be a good thing for the country. But he's still firing up stupid people that they've somehow been fucked in this whole thing. And that's never safe with the average IQ of and gun ownership of his most ardent followers. What the fuck? Here we are. I'm telling you, it's gonna be like a squatter in an apartment or a house. It's gonna be a fucking evicting a rotten tenant. America has a stalker. I think was it Bill Maher or maybe John Oliver said that the other night. I can't remember which. But we brought this on ourselves, and now it's going to be another few months before we fucking scrape this thing off our shoe. And we brought it on ourselves. You know what? By the way, I want to thank the customer of the week at Cornette's Collectibles, Zach Lutz. Zach Lutz, bless you. Do you know what he did, Brian? Do you have any idea what he did that warmed the cockles of my heart?
What made him customer of the week? I have no idea.
He purchased a 5X thank you, fuck you, buy t-shirt and a thank you, fuck you, buy face mask with them to be sent to Donald J. Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20500. And because he did that, I'm not only going to send self-same giant-sized t-shirt to that person that he wanted it gifted to, but I'm donating the money that he spent on purchasing that to the Crusade for Children. I'm not going to charge him in any way, shape, or form for delivering that package to his good friend Donald J. Trump in Washington. He's the customer of the week.
5XL, you say?
Well, we wanted to make sure that it fit. But you know, old Donnie, he's going to be doing like I used to. He's going to be doing a lot of aggravation eating. He's going to be down in those Big Macs and Quarter Pounders. I shouldn't say that. I'm making myself hungry already. But he's going to be stuffing them down his gullet. So we want to make sure he has room to expand into that shirt on his way to being so big that he's one of the guys on TV. They have to cut the wall out of the house to lift him out with a forklift. Anyway, if they weren't already keeping an eye on me in Washington, or maybe both me and Zach after this incident, I found out this past week that they've already got an eye on me in Washington. I haven't told you about this yet, but I'm registering. Certain of my activities are registering up in D.C. You want to hear about this?
Yeah, I'd have no idea where you're going, so yes.
You do well, but hopefully just hang on. We'll get there. You know I go to the post office quite often. And I must say, before I reveal this factoid that I've just found out here recently, I want to explain to the people a little bit. Some of them, if they're regular listeners, they know, but I package all the Cornette's Collectibles items myself. Everything is signed and done to order. We don't just sign a bunch of stuff and then set it and leave it under the heat lamp till it gets all dried out and chewy. Everything's cooked fresh. This isn't fast food. This is gourmet fine dining collectibles, right? And I package everything to make sure, because we've got the peanuts and the cardboard, if it comes to it, for the packages and the bubble wrap and everything's nicely packaged and wrapped up and everything, because I'm OCD that way. I do everything myself. You get personal service. That's why it takes a little bit longer. But one of the things that I do that probably most people don't do, Brian, I would say you would agree that most people who do the level of mail order fulfillment that I do not do their postage at the window, right? They do the print online thing.
Correct.
And I've mentioned, and many people still bring that up because they haven't heard me specifically talk about this. But none of us will live long enough for me to learn how to fucking print out all those labels and all that postage for all those different items in all those varying weights and packages that we do hundreds of orders a week and just take them to the post office and any of that shit get where it's supposed to be. I think you will agree that the chances are slim that I could perform any of those functions.
I think you could if you applied yourself a little bit, and I don't think it would be too hard to learn.
Do you think
I don't think there's any chance you will.
Ever applying myself? You are correct. No. But by the same token, I go right over here, the lovely and talented Bree. We've got our vibe going, and I've got the packages, and they're all sorted into priority, first class, international, whatever the case, and I feed them right over the window, and she's hitting the buttons and printing the stickers, and we've got an assembly line thing going here. She can do 100 domestic packages in 45 minutes. That kind of pace when we get going and there's no equipment malfunctions. Anyway, and it's all right, and that's why I have so few packages that actually get lost, because the shit's actually done by a professional from start to finish. But I do explain those methods now that I will reveal to you. Apparently, there is a computer thing that all the post office windows are hooked up to the master post office computer. I mean, you know, this stuff's above my head, but it all goes into a central thing somewhere in Washington, which is the seat of the post office. And when I am at, let's say, for example, I'm doing my shipping from 9 to 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. For that 1 hour period of time that I'm at that specific window at my post office, that is the highest revenue producing window at any post office in the United States of America.
That's crazy.
Because when you think about it, we've got this thing down where I'm feeding her the packages and she's used to it and she's dealing out the postage and we're going at such a pace. Nobody for that period of time in any other window, probably in America, would be doing that volume, that amount of stuff that quickly. So they can actually tell in Washington 4 mornings a week when I'm doing my shipping. They know, because as I stand there, as Dennis Conner used to say, as I stand there right now, that's the biggest revenue producing. And people are going to say, oh, somebody will go up and buy a money order for $1,500 in 30 seconds. Well, no, that goes to a different place because they don't get to keep the $1,500. They're giving you you're paying like $1.80 fee or whatever the fuck it is. So yes, Cornette's Collectibles. We are rocking the world. The #1 post office window. Boy, to somebody beat that out there. I've boosted my post office's classification over the last couple of years in some fashion with my business. So I carry some cachet around the place. Anyway, if you'd like to carry some cash over to me, folks out there, you can do so by going to JimCornette.com, clicking on collectibles, and buying some of these incredibly high quality and reasonably priced t-shirts, face masks, burger towels, books, the Behind the Curtain graphic novel, now in its 3rd softcover printing, only $19.95 autographed, classic wrestling DVDs from $9, Cult of Cornette membership certificates on heavy cardstock, only $12, and so much more, and continue to make Cornette's Collectibles the #1 supporter of the United States Postal Service and all its fine employees and carriers who keep us hooked up and in communication with the rest of the world in times of dire need. Through rain and sleet and snow, miserable weather, dogs, the Postal Service are fine people, and they use their left and right turn indicator. They just can't really sometimes figure out which way to turn because they sit on the wrong side of those little fucking trucks. Brian, what do you got?
What do I got coming out of that?
I don't know. I don't know where I was talking about something, and then I started talking about the patriotism of the Postal Service. Oh, Cornette's Collectibles, JimCornette.com. Please do get your orders in quick, folks, because it's getting holiday mailing season. And we do need some turnaround time because of all of the personal service that I just mentioned. I got a programming update, though. We mentioned something here on a show recently, last week or on the drive-thru or something, and I was corrected. I ascribed a certain old comedy routine to the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was incorrect. The folks tweeted me the link. It was the Jack Benny program, where Mel Blanc was part of a band from Mexico. And Mel Blanc was the leader of the band, Cy, and one of his bandmates was his sister, Sue. And as a profession, she sewed. As you'll recall this, Brian, because you acted much like you are now, like you had no idea what I was fucking talking about.
I've since seen the clip, yes.
I sent you the clip.
You did.
I'm waiting for you to grovel at my feet and be embarrassed and thank me for bringing this comedy classic to you that you were hitherto ignorant of.
I'm not going to thank you for nothing. I'm a big Jack Benny fan. That's not one of his better moments on his show.
But it's one of Mel Blanc's better moments.
He's had much better moments than that.
See? Sigh? All right. I'm sorry. I wanted to apologize.
You will admit Mel Blanc has had better moments than that, will you not?
Well, he's had a few, but it just always cracked me up.
Cracked you up so much you didn't know what show it was. You said it was the Ed Sullivan show.
I know.
How do you confuse Ed Sullivan with Jack Benny?
Well, it was a really big shoe. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Walter Winchell, George Burns. It was one of those shows. I don't know which one.
Oh, for heaven's sake, there's no similarity between Walter Winchell and George Burns.
I don't have a comeback to that. I guess not.
Well, so I've proven my point. We'll continue on. See? Don't mess with me. Sooner or later, you'll step in it. I will admit, though, also I have a fondness now for a new program. It's a remake of The Weakest Link, but instead of the acerbic and acidic little British woman, Jane Lynch is doing it now. And I mentioned this to you the other day. I watched a couple of episodes yesterday. And these people just cannot get the fucking game. I don't know whether they pick stupid people on purpose. They never put any money in the bank. One day they had 8 straight answers. They could have got $25,000. And the guy didn't think to say bank before they fucked the whole thing up and they started over. You're a Jane Lynch fan, though, you were telling me.
I don't know if I said that. I said I've enjoyed some of the stuff she did. She was in 40-Year-Old Virgin. I thought that was good. I know she was on that show Glee, but I didn't watch that because it was garbage.
She was not a 40-year-old virgin. She might have been in it, but I doubt it. She made it that long.
I didn't accuse her of being the 40-year-old virgin.
Well,
she was in the film. Did you see that film?
As my uncle used to say, I bet she's got a fur ball in her stomach as big as a house cat.
What?
But nevertheless, I like the game.
Did you see 40-Year-Old Virgin? You didn't answer.
No. I've never. Was that a Vivid video?
No, it's a fantastic comedy with Steve Carell.
Okay, and others?
And others.
Many others?
Many others. It's a Judd Apatow film. It's one of the funniest comedies of the first decade of the century. And you didn't see it?
That sounds like it was the second least good match.
No, it was great.
One of the greatest comedies of the second half of the first decade of the century.
That and Borat kind of came out back to back, a similar time period. And they were two of the best comedies I've ever seen in a theater. Just people losing their minds.
Well,
I can't believe you've never seen it.
In the middle of a bunch of people in a theater out in public while they're losing their minds.
Did you ever see Knocked Up?
I prefer that they'd be a sane group.
Did you ever see Knocked Up?
Not that anybody could ever prove.
So you just have ignored. Did you ever see Borat?
I saw that a long time ago.
I'm surprised. You actually would probably like those movies, 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, and then after that, Judd Apatow's films take a big dive. But those
I've been gainfully employed for the last 25 or 30 years. I haven't had time to do things like that.
Well, there were some windows in there. You may have had time to catch a film or two.
Every once in a while, but anyway, we might need to start a wrestling version of Weakest Link segment here on the program. Try to figure out some way to make fun of some people for saying stupid things. Oh, I forgot that's what we do already.
Hey, can I play you a clip? I don't know if I played this for you before, but you got me thinking about it when you brought up how stupid the people on the Weakest Link are, that they don't get the game, they don't know what they're doing, they must find stupid people. Can I play you a clip?
Please, play me a clip.
This came out a while ago. This is on some show that lasted a very brief period of time called 1 versus 100. I don't even remember what network it was on. But
wait a minute, I think I knew her.
1 versus 100?
Yeah.
Behind the dumpster in Greenville.
Yeah, in Greenville. Yeah.
So it's like you have one guy in the center, and there's people all around him, and he takes them each on in like a trivia contest. So they have this one guy, he looks right out of Central Casting. He's like the nerd. Looks completely fake. But he's going up against, in this trivia contest for, 2 minutes, this guy named Cali Muscle. This guy is jacked to the gills. I mean, he's gigantic, like Bobby Lashley size, gigantic. And he appears to know nothing. So let me play this for you, because the end of this clip is something that me and my brother still to this day joke about. I'll play it for you. It's about 2 minutes. Here, listen to this.
20 seconds on the clock for each question. Guess all you want. If you say it, you got it. All right, Callie, this first question is to you. Good luck to both of you. Here we go. 10 drops to a million. 20 seconds on the clock. If the months of the year are placed in alphabetical order, which ones last?
February, March, April, February, April, January.
Work it out. 10 seconds.
December, November, January.
Name the other months.
April, March, April, September, October.
This is for you, Bob. Here we go. What Japanese sport features wrestlers that weigh an average of 330 pounds?
Sumo wrestling.
All right, now I'm going to pause this for a second, because that kind of gave you a little bit of an idea how the show goes. Jim, if I asked you, who is the mascot for Frosted Flakes, what would your answer be?
Tony the Tiger.
Most people would know that.
Right.
But even if you didn't know that, you may guess something, the animal. You may guess some kind of
tiger.
You may guess some kind of animal
the lion.
Name. Yeah, some kind of mascot-like name.
Yeah.
Here's what Cali Muscle says.
20 seconds on the clock. Back to you, Callie. Who beat out Katie the Kangaroo to become the mascot of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes?
And Harold Gallagher. Bun.
10 seconds.
Bun Hepper Tepper. Annie Mae Henny. Mary.
Oh, Callie Muscle, what happened?
Annie Mae Henny.
Bon Hepper Tripper. How are any of those a guess?
He couldn't quite fill it in.
And Harold
and they even spotted, how many letters did they spot him there at that point?
A few, enough that
Several.
Enough that you knew it wasn't Bon Hepper Trepper.
Well, you know what, Brian? I'm glad that nobody was betting on old Callie there.
Ah.
If they had been, they would have lost. Unlike the people who listen to this program, they win. They're winners. Unlike our current ex-president, not losers. The people who listen to this program are winners. I've been sifting through some of the emails. This is a few weeks behind, but nevertheless, still pertinent. From Joseph, said, hello, Mr. Cornette. Just wanted to say thank you. I went ahead and took advantage of the promo code, joined my bookie, and put a couple of bucks on Teofimo Lopez Jr., who was the underdog in the lightweight unification match that took place tonight. This was October 17th. Sure, it was a controversial decision, but apparently old Joseph put the fix in. It was a controversial decision, but I have a couple more bucks in my pocket than I did 24 hours ago. So thank you again for the tip on my bookie. Now, where else are you going to listen to something like this podcast absolutely free and make money to do it? Where else, Brian Last? I'll tell you where. Nowhere.
That's right.
Except any other place that you might have answered if you'd had a chance. Folks, whether it's the late fall college ball, the NBA bubble, UFC Fight Island, 2020 has been a year unlike any other. Boy, howdy, is that true. But you need a sports book with offers unlike any other. So put some skin in the game with my bookie. Odds boosts, lightning deals, free bets all season long. The NFL action for Turkey Day coming right around the corner. Whether you're a first-time customer or you've been playing with MyBookie for years, there's no shortage of value to be found in the thousands of game lines, unique prop bets, contests that they offer every single week. You can sign up or get reloaded. And for heaven's sake, some people sometimes need to be reloaded. Sign up or get reloaded today, find an edge, make your bet, and get paid. They've even got a big casino platform so you can play all the classic table and slot and card games. And MyBookie never closes. So you can literally gamble 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until your eyeballs can't stand it anymore. Make the right play and sign up today at MyBookie and use the promo code JCE to get your deposit matched halfway, all the way up to $1,000. You put in 200, they'll give you another 100. You see how that works. You can go on from there and extrapolate. It's free betting money. So, folks, go to MyBookie, join in on the fun, and win some cash while you're at it. It's winning season. Just like Joseph. Joseph, he didn't tell me how much money he won, though, there. Do you think he won a lot of money and he was afraid I would want a significant portion of it?
Well, why send the email then if he didn't win a lot of money?
Well, then, goddamn, I think he should have provided that information because I'd like to know how much to ask for.
Right, if you won $5, you're not going to send in a note that says, "Oh, I got so much more money in my pocket, thanks."
Well, then, goddamn, Joseph, send me my 10%. I was your agent in this deal. You wouldn't have got that money if it hadn't been for me and MyBookie. Me and MyBookie strolling down.
I think I heard that on Ed Sullivan once.
No, it was Jack Benny. All right. Speaking of bad television sketch comedy, we reviewed the fiasco from the Hardy compound that was part of the Full Gear. They should have called it Fully Loaded because I have a feeling all of the creative people were at the time that they belched this forth. But we reviewed the Hardy compound situation.
All of the creative people.
It was a compound fracture. We reviewed it. And we read an email that we had gotten from one of our listeners who had a friend that worked as like one of the local crew people, a cable puller or somebody who helped with the light setup or transporting or set. I don't know if they had catering. They definitely had metal garbage cans out in the forest. So hopefully they used those garbage cans to put the catering in. But anyway, the scraps. So we read the email. We talked about the match when we talked about the pay-per-view. And apparently, of all the people that we said some pretty harsh things about in our review of the fiasco that was that AEW pay-per-view, I would have not put in the top 10 or even 15 that we said harsh things about this person that should get pissed. But apparently Rebby Hardy got mad at us. Is this what I'm hearing on a Twitter?
Apparently. I saw a few people send in stuff about this, but not too many.
And I don't know. I asked you off air. I said, did we really go in on Rebby Hardy? I don't even remember even seeing her in the clip. We mentioned in the email that they had shot something with her playing a piano, and then I told you, I said, I don't even remember seeing that. And apparently it was in the part that I fast forwarded.
Yeah, well, you missed most of the second half of that fiasco because you fast forwarded.
It went on twice as long as what the point that I got out of it.
It went on for a while longer. You missed Sammy getting locked in their compound or garage or whatever the hell it was, and then the piano playing commenced, and the horror continued.
The parade of terror. You will recall that I executed my fast forward rule when Gangrel and Shane Helms had just shown up, and Matt Hardy had been in this fight with Sammy Guevara, fight allegedly for however long, but suddenly Matt stopped and he and Shane looked at each other, and Matt said something referring back to when they did something in Impact and talked about long-term storytelling. And I said, if they can't even pretend to have a pretend fight all the way through what they're pretending to do without breaking that, then it's not worth my time. And I fast forwarded from there. But we read the email, we talked about the match, and Rebby got upset because apparently she was painted in an unflattering light from the writer of the email, and we did not present that email as if it was gospel truth in every step of the way. So I asked you, I said, well, should she have been offended? Did we say something really rotten? I say, you know what? Instead of going back, let's just play again when we read the email and what we said to see if in the overall scheme of things, we were harder on Rebby Hardy than we were on anybody else on his program. What do you think?
I'm going to play this now. I'm going to play it a little bit before the email, a little bit after the email, so it puts everything in the proper context, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Context is key.
That's right. Here is, from this past week's drive-thru, Jim Cornette reviewing Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. Elite deletion.
Okay, I'm going to depart from our format here for a second. I'm going to read an email that I should have read, but I didn't see it. Kippelman sent it to me, but I didn't see it until just yesterday when I was going through some stuff, and then it was too late to read it before this match. But it would have been a spoiler on the next event that was on this show, Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. I think you were furnished a copy of this email too. You may have seen it, but somebody wrote to us at the drive-thru. Hello, Jim. Love the show. I live in Pinehurst, North Carolina. This week, the AEW crew came down to film at Matt and Jeff Hardy's house. I think it's Matt's house. I don't think he and Jeff live together. But anyway, in nearby Cameron, North Carolina. The brothers are neighbors that bought all the land down one road outside of Cameron for themselves and their father, whom is known locally as Legend. Anyway, someone I know was hired to set up and work the lighting for the Matt and Sammy match, which they filmed Wednesday and Thursday night last week. This is apparently for the upcoming pay-per-view. My friend that doesn't watch the product noted to me that it was the stupidest thing she'd ever been a part of. She noted that they had over 300 people working the production. 300! That's got to be an exaggeration. And asked me if this was normal. I just shook my head in embarrassment. She said the cost for such a production was beyond anything she had ever seen, and also related that she had never heard of AEW nor knew it was on mainstream television. And of course, we're talking about the people who set up and work lighting and pull cable and stuff. They don't just bring in everybody for that. They have local people that do these things in these various areas. Apparently, the rule number one was for nobody to speak to Rebby Hardy unless she spoke to them, and don't park any production trucks, vehicles, or put any equipment by her car, which was pink. Rebby filmed a scene in the warehouse by Matt's home where she played piano, yet everyone was made to wait outside the building when she was filmed, save the camera operators. Apparently, it took a long time, and everybody was just standing around waiting. From there, they brought Matt and Sammy in to start filming, whom my friend thought was 16 years old. Sammy, I believe, not Matt Hardy. Regardless, she said Sammy was probably the nicest guy on the set. But she wondered again how any of this was wrestling, even though there was a ring on set. She just kept remarking on how much money was being spent or blown beyond the over 300 people there, whom all were booked into Pinehurst Resort hotels. Oddly, they all got double queen-bedded rooms per person, even people that lived around the area. Mind-boggling. They brought in a monster truck and had it run over a golf cart, or tried to, as it only knocked it over. They brought in other wrestlers, 2 guys that they had to reshoot over and over doing flips because they couldn't get them right, whom, based on the description, sounded like Private Party. All this stuff is coming to pass when I watch this show. They filmed a sequence where Matt and Sammy fired bazookas at each other that shot fireworks. They had to keep filming in the water by Jeff's house and a heavy sequence at a fountain when Matt couldn't get his dialogue right. The whole thing took all night, and during the time she said this guy was standing around acting giddy in a hoodie, whom after I showed her a picture confirmed it was your guy Tony Khan. She had no idea he was fronting the bill for all this. In fact, the entire time, everyone in production was remarking how much money was being wasted within earshot of him. He didn't seem to care. In the end, Matt went over Sammy, which was filmed shortly before daylight. Again, she just wondered how much money the whole operation was and if this made any money. Again, I just felt embarrassed. My question, Jim, if you had to give an estimate on when AEW gets the plug pulled, When would it be? When the guy in the hoodie quits being giddy.
I got to jump in real quick. That email came in last week.
Yes, it's dated, wait a minute, it's dated November 2nd.
And one of the reasons, and I kicked myself for this, one of the reasons it wasn't on last week's drive-thru was I'm reading it and I'm saying, this person could be working us. You know what I mean? Like,
you mean you'd seen it?
I saw it and I said to myself, there's no way. Little did I know, and I should have known better. I said, this person could be a mega AEW fan just trying to mess with us, sending us a false report for this match. And it was because of that I didn't read it on last week's drive-thru. And when I was watching the little bits of this match I actually watched, because I executed my Matt Hardy rule, which is back now, I realized that the email was 100% factual. And I kicked myself. I should have read it on last week's show. That's 100% my fault.
Well, I'm pissed at you for another reason, because I sat down and watched this thing for quite a while.
And by the way, the Rebby Hardy thing, when I worked at Sony Music, that was the Jennifer Lopez thing. When she came in the building, you weren't allowed to make eye contact with her. And when Lauryn Hill came in the building, you weren't allowed to call her Lauren. She was Miss Hill. Those were the two big ones I remember. And then there were people like Ricky Martin who would come in and were just fantastic human beings. And it made you want to help them and work with them.
But don't speak unless you're spoken to.
Don't make eye contact with J-Lo. Which is fine. Just, it gives you more time to look at her ass.
Well, I wish that's very sexist and misogynistic. I wish.
It is. Well, there it is, Jim. There it is in the proper context.
Well, I don't know about I could use the word proper about any of that, but context, yes. Did we? I don't see that we savaged Rebby Hardy in that, and it was the emailer's opinion relating what he was told from his friend that was on site as part of the crew, but I don't think we were particularly hard on Rebby in the context of that whole thing.
Not at all. Not at all.
Especially since I pretty much ended up the whole thing was spitting on the microphone over everybody that was involved in that whole fiasco. It was embarrassing to professional wrestling and was totally had nothing to do with what the wrestling business or anything it's ever been involved with was all about. But they got and I think Matt got hot, was he hot because Rebby was hot, or what did he say?
I pulled up the tweets while we were talking about this here, or listening to the audio here. Some guy said, yeah, this is totally made up. As I've said in the past, a lot of the letters on the show are fake. Which, by the way, let me just quickly interject here. We have never made up an email for the drive-thru. We get thousands of emails a week for the drive-thru. I'm not saying some people haven't sent stuff in where maybe they're making something up, but we've never made up an email. Everything we've read on that show is an actual email that's come in.
For the experience or the drive-thru, we've never made up an email because dumb shits. The reason why that we read emails sometimes is to have some programming without having to make anything up.
So Matt Hardy quote tweeted that guy and wrote, ha ha ha, only the best fabricated horse shit for their toxic lackeys.
Now, wait, Matt Hardy is too old of an adult man to use the word toxic, isn't he? Or now is he trying to play with well, I guess he is trying to play with kids.
What's more toxic? Our audience, our toxic lackeys, or his awful content?
That's the problem when you're using the word toxic after you've just committed an offense again that Matt Hardy and his brother have racked and wrecked their bodies for, a profession that they have physically sacrificed for all these years, and now they participate in shit like this and just makes complete total joke out of it and shits in its face. But we're toxic over here. I think somebody's drinking the toxic Kool-Aid, playing with the young kids.
I think someone just can't accept that his work sucks and has for a while.
Well, but no, I've always been a fan of Matt Hardy's work when he was working instead of doing, fucking backyard independent cinema film level movie scenes. It's like a bunch of kids getting together. Hey, let's do a low budget movie instead of, hey, let's be a professional wrestling organization. And him and Jericho and a couple of others are legitimate name stars that don't have to do that shit. Like it's a goddamn, hey kids, let's put on a show, crowdfunding fucking pro wrestling organization. They don't have to do that. So that's what's toxic to me. I've always been a fan of Matt Hardy's work. Remember when Matt Hardy several weeks ago came out and actually spoke like himself, and he had been hurt and he was going to go home and heal up, and it looked like, okay, they're going to drop all this shit and let Matt Hardy be Matt Hardy and train the young kids and be a veteran, locker room leader. And he never takes a week off. He seconds an underneath tag team for a couple weeks and then comes back and he's back in the throwing each other in the fucking lake of Carnation instant milk or whatever the fuck it is.
And by the way, in regards to this email, and I'm not going to say the person's name who sent it in because I don't want them to get harassed.
But no, they would be the victims of harassment from that toxic audience that follows that AEW stuff.
It was forwarded to you on the 2nd. It actually came in Sunday, November 1st at 10:30 a.m. And according to this email, the filming was done the previous Wednesday and Thursday night, which would be the 28th and 29th of October. I'm looking right now. That was a taped week of Dynamite. So no one was in Daly's place. Obviously, they were on Matt Hardy's property. So if anyone thinks the email's fake, go check that out. See if that's true. Really, the only things of question in this, based on, again, this came in on November 1st. 300 people in production, that sounds ridiculous. And you pointed it out right away.
Yes. And and by the way, when you're out in the middle of the woods in North Carolina at somebody's house and there's a bunch of trucks and some vans and some light trees and there's 15 or 20 or 25 people from the wrestling company wandering around and another 15 or 20 crew members, it looks like 300 people.
And as far as the Rebby Hardy thing, which again, from the email, apparently the rule number 1 was for nobody to speak to Rebby Sky Hardy unless she spoke to them, and don't park any production trucks, vehicles, or put any equipment by her car, which was pink.
I would have said the same shit myself. Don't park next to that. Especially if I'd paid for it. If I was either Matt or Rebby, either one, don't park anything and ding that pink car.
Well, we don't know for a fact, because, again, we're just basing it off this email, which everything else in the email has turned out to be accurate, because it came in on the 1st.
Including the bazookas where they shot fireworks up each other's taints.
But this Rebby Hardy rule, this alleged Rebby Hardy rule, it doesn't say for sure that she knew about the rule.
You're correct there.
I mean, it wasn't she instituted this rule. It was, we were told, don't park your car next to her car. Don't even look at her. Don't, whatever it was said there. So, I mean, that doesn't in any way say that she was aware of the rule, but you asked about Rebby Hardy's tweets. I have found them here. The first one I see that references this, she retweeted something that Matt did, and she wrote, "I can't believe you cut out the part where I told everyone there not to speak to me or look me in the eyes. Misleading!" All in caps. "So fucking tired of people lying on my name and talking shit like it never ends. And if I respond, I'm the problematic one. It's fucking exhausting." And then the only other one I see here, she found a sympathetic fan. "Unfortunately, it seems some women in the wrestling industry can't have an opinion or voice of their own. It's completely toxic and needs to change," to which Rebby Hardy quote tweeted, "Yet this is the 3rd grown-ass man in 3 months who don't even know me to straight up make some shit up for likes and clicks. Yes, I'm easy to hate. So your little fake radio shows get hate listens whenever my name is mentioned, but you's really that pressed for material? ? I think she thinks she was the focus of this whole segment.
It sounds like that it was the focus of our conversation there to malign her in some kind of way. And I think we've established that was not the intent, nor we thought it was the content of the thing. We didn't realize she was the centerpiece of that. We didn't realize that she was ducking because all of those planets were whirling around her head. the gravitational pull of her, the center of the universe, was so strong.
I didn't realize she can get us clicks and likes. We'd be talking about her more often.
Well, there you go. Hey, there you go. Click us and like us if you want us to talk some more about Reb. No, Rebby, we do apologize if you took this too seriously to heart. We were trying to criticize Matt doing one of the shittiest things I've ever seen in the history of professional wrestling. You were just collateral damage, but I'm sure, Brian, you apologize, don't you?
No, I don't apologize for what?
If we caused anguish and heartache by the numbers.
We read an email which spoiled their awful wrestling match, but we didn't read it before the match, so we didn't really spoil it. We read it after the fact. And by the way, it says a lot about the sloppy shop over there. That word got out and got sent to us on November 1st at 10:30 a.m. Says a lot about that sloppy shop over there. But no, we didn't. And she was a minor thing in here, and we don't know if it's true or not true. We don't know if she was aware. We don't know if Matt Hardy went up to people and said, look, stay away from my wife's car, and please just avoid her at all costs. We have no idea what the hell happened there. I
don't know if he would have phrased it like that.
We have no idea. So, no, there's nothing to apologize for here. It seems like they're trying to get some attention off this while accusing us of using her name to get clicks and likes.
Well, and also it kind of, I don't want to use Rebby in the same sentence as it's kind of tit for tat, but this production that they did out in their mud of their compound out there in North Carolina, this was the one where that Matt had Sammy taking bumps in the mud and said, oh, get up. The old folks will think this is a mud show. So theoretically, even though when we reviewed it, I forgot that was even in there and I didn't mention it till later. Some people say, why didn't you say anything about that? Because it was so fucking silly. But I'm in their heads because I'm all they think about, all the fans think about, and all the guys think about. They either want to fucking zing me or they want to get a compliment from me, or the fans want to hear them zing me or whatever the fuck. I can't blame them. At least that's interesting. It's unlike the trend of the rest of their program. But nevertheless, so since Matt was the first one to insinuate me into that at the taped conflict that they did at their compound in North Carolina, then me reading an email about somebody's shitty experience helping shoot it was merely the tat for the previous tit. So Rebby came in with the next tit rather than a tat. My tit was really a tat, but her tat was really a tit.
I wish Matt Hardy would teleport himself back to 2001.
I think we all do. Anyway, Rebby, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, if I've caused you any anguish or any heartache or any sorrow, any pain, blues, and agony and frustration over mentioning you in an email that somebody else wrote about a thing that somebody else said, then I apologize. But folks out there, if you have a real issue that you need to talk to somebody about that is causing you problems, that you're anguishing over, not just hurt feelings because somebody didn't like a bad segment that you did on television, haven't we all been there? Then call the folks at BetterHelp. Folks, if you need a therapist, a licensed professional therapist that's not available in your community or in person, or that you don't want to see in person because it's currently a pandemic, then you can go to BetterHelp.com and get hooked up with professional counseling done securely online. They've got a broad range of expertise available, and you can do this worldwide. It's not just an American thing. They're available around the globe. You can set up an account, log into it anytime, send a message to your counselor. You get responses. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so there's no waiting rooms and no venturing out in public. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you need to find the right match for you. And you can go to their website and read the testimonials that they post from the over 1 million people that are taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And I got a sneaking suspicion that a lot of people listening to this program need mental help.
I'm not going to say that. But I'm sure a lot of people could use someone to talk to during these hard and pressing times.
Yes, you need somebody to talk to instead of me because I'm rotting your brain. Folks, everybody needs, I think that was a song. Everybody needs somebody to talk to, and BetterHelp can be there for you. And if you go to betterhelp.com/JCE, then you can get 10% off your first month's services. That's a special offer for the experienced listeners. BetterHelp, HELP.com/JCE. 10% off your first month's services. We can't do any better than that, for heaven's sake. Join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Be one of them. Be one of us. Go to betterhelp.com today, or even yesterday if you have time.
And if you have other AEW spoilers, send them in. Now we'll read them on the air.
Yes, we will. Anything you can spoil for these, they're sore losers is what they are. And they can't take it. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. I was the one that got knocked on their television with the old Mud Show Man. I respond with an independent review, and I'm maligned. Maligned, I say. I'm sick of these grown-ass men coming up and yanking me all around. I don't know what the fuck she was saying in that. She lost me around the far turn on some of that modern verbiage.
You and your toxic lackeys.
And let me once again reiterate that any grown adult man that uses the word toxic as relates to relationships or people or whatever the fuck is not a grown-ass adult man. For heaven's sake. Just say asshole. It covers everything and it sounds better.
Your fans hate my work. They're toxic. Maybe your work is toxic.
Hey, the cult of Cornette fans are like those psychedelic toads. They're not toxic. They may look ugly, but you lick one of them, you have a great time.
Well, Jim, I guess another topic that a lot of people have been asking us about this week, I guess it's also under the umbrella of something that was once really good and now has fallen into a pit of despair. Did you see this article? And I use the term article loosely. This Sports Illustrated piece about, the title of it's Bret Screwed Bret Unchecked by someone named Robin Lundberg, whoever the hell that is.
Yes. And it just, somebody tweeted it to me, and of course it's November, Survivor Series time, so somebody's got to do something on the Montreal screw job, right? And okay, it's been done before and it'll be done again. The problem is it'll never be done this badly. Somebody tweeted and they had a picture of it. It's the Sports Illustrated website. So if Sports Illustrated does something on the Montreal screw job, maybe I'll click on it. And it was like some high school kid had written 3 or 4 poorly worded paragraphs containing his opinion, and nobody's ever heard of him. So who gives a shit about his opinion? And it was like, it sounded like a kid's high school book report that was rushed the night before. Let me get by with this. But it had Sports Illustrated's name on it. And a bunch of people, the comments were like, what kind of clickbait is this? Is this even an article? When I first looked at it, I got to the end of it. I was like, is that the highlight description at the head of the article? No, that was the article. Descriptions of movies on your cable guide have more depth than this piece on the Montreal screw job that has been analyzed and overanalyzed since the dawn of time. And I'm not saying that nobody should ever write about it again, but if you do, it should be a more pithy piece than what Sports Illustrated. Didn't they used to be a big deal? And now just do they take fan submissions now?
Well, let's be honest. Sports Illustrated, whenever I see anything that's wrestling related in Sports Illustrated, it's 2 things. One, it's a wrestling promotion or entity trying to say, hey, look, Sports Illustrated covered this because Sports Illustrated once meant something. And on the other hand, now this is just a really, really awful take and a poorly written series of thoughts. But usually it's just a puff piece, a substance-free puff piece, whenever there's anything about wrestling in Sports Illustrated. There's nothing like in-depth, there's no reporting, there's no breaking news on something. It's just, here's a promotional copy that we got from a wrestling company, let's repeat it with some other stuff in it. There's never anything that's hard-hitting, there's never anything of importance. It's just, It's like a PR arm.
But aren't they supposed to write the PR release as well? Like you've actually done this in public before? Instead of what this fucking guy did. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I do. I just pulled it up.
Just a couple of the pithy literary quotes to get us through the day.
This is by the noted sports writer Robin Lundberg. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, and a big baby. As everyone was reliving the infamous Montreal Screwjob on its 23rd anniversary, I couldn't help but think, why are we supposed to feel sorry for Bret the Hitman Hart more than 2 decades later, simply because he took himself too seriously? Now, in the midst of this article, Jim, I should point out there are various tweets that are here. I don't know if they're supposed to be considered part of the body of the article or what. This is a real herky-jerky.
Yeah, it just kind of, he made a few statements in between a couple of tweets of things that some other people said.
Hart was leaving the company. At that point, should he really get to dictate the terms? I didn't know Falls Count Anywhere but Canada was a kind of match. Imagine if this happened in professional sports rather than professional wrestling. Let a star player refuse.
Oh, great. When Sports Illustrated groups professional sports over here and then professional wrestling over here. 2 completely different things. Fuck.
Let a star player refuse to enter a game or run a play and wait for the takes. Ask Scottie Pippen what people think about that 20-something years after The Last Dance. I'm not saying it was all handled in the most respectful fashion by Vince McMahon. But,
well, thank goodness he's being fair.
But, he is Vince McMahon. And as far as Shawn Michaels...
Wait, did he write but,
Yes, but, comma, he is Vince McMahon. And as far as Shawn Michaels... And that's a question mark. And as far as Shawn Michaels... Okay. And as far as Shawn Michaels... Bret should have known...
As far as Shawn Michaels...
Bret should have known not to let him lock him in that sharpshooter. He is the showstopper after all.
Oh, my God.
All right. However, ending aside, the real spit in the face here was from Hart in not conceding a loss. He refused to do his job. Look, I was a fan of the excellence of execution, and he will forever be an all-time great. But what happened that night?
But he's a piece of shit right here in his piece I'm writing.
But what happened that night hurts his legacy more than it does that of Vince, HBK, or the WWE. So after all these years, ultimately, what Mr. McMahon said was correct. Bret screwed Bret. And this is one of the single worst.
That is the entire article.
That is the article.
Yeah, and thankfully now we have the ultimate opinion on the subject, like a Supreme Court verdict. Now that old Robin Landsberg has weighed in.
What a fucking idiot! What a complete
Who is this?
fucking
Who
idiot.
is this person that he can write for Sports Illustrated about something he's obviously? You know what? I want to write for TV Guide because I've watched television. So I'll just write something for TV Guide about something I've seen on TV.
If you ever want to look at why Sports Illustrated doesn't mean what it once was, there's lots of different reasons. But the quality of writers is a big part of it. This is not just a stupid take. This is an awfully written piece with just a horrendous take.
That just sounds unprofessional.
By the way, Bret Hart had creative control in his fucking contract. How do you leave that out? How do you leave that
He
out?
left everything out. He only wrote 322 words on the whole goddamn thing.
He should have known not to put him in a sharpshooter because he is the showstopper after all. What?
I'm surprised he was able to work their full names in. That piece was so short. I tell you, that was a short piece. I tell you.
The quote from John McAdam, the sporting news was always better.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Sport and Life was always better too. But then again, nevertheless, folks, if you would like to remove the smell, the stench of amateur journalism off of you, then you need to talk to our friends at Hawthorne. We've just started talking about these folks. You may have heard it last week. The folks at Hawthorne are a premium tailored personal care brand that makes it easy for guys to feel, look, and smell their best. When you go to Hawthorne, and you can do that by going to Hawthorne, Hawthorne, Hawthorne.co. When you do that, you take a quiz because they personalize, they tailor everything to you. Anything from what your favorite drink is, how you like to spend a night out. Brian, I know they had several questions in the French toast section that applied specifically to you. But they factor your answers into the results and the products that they recommend for you. And then when you get things, whether you've got the peely, scaly skin, or whether you want to smell a certain way for work and play, they have a work and play cologne. I know, Brian, you were all wrapped up over you're eating their soap.
I'm not eating their soap, but
you're getting drunk. You're getting inebriated off the dark rum soap that you've just raved about.
Now, not everyone's going to get the dark rum soap because, again, it's tailored to how you answer the survey, answer the quiz. But thankfully, luckily, this is what they sent me every time I wash my hands now. And I do it all throughout the day because, there's a pandemic going on.
Yes.
I don't know what these other people in the house are doing. Every time I wash my hands, I immediately smell my hands now. They're clean and they smell delicious. And
then you're over in the corner licking your paws with Swami.
You can't prove that.
But anyway, folks, these things, they have a variety of ingredients that I cannot pronounce for the lotions and potions and the soaps and the things that make you look good and smell good and feel good. And it's all tailored specifically to you. High quality products tailored to your specifications, to your interests, to your needs. And they take the risk out of it by giving you free shipping on your order and returns, because if you don't like the products, you can return them and they will retailor them based on your feedback. So for the special offers for the holidays that they've got going on right now, visit hawthorne.co. That's HAWTHORNE.co. Check out the special holiday offers, and you will be ever more attractive for those holiday parties where you get on Zoom with people. But, some people I've known, you could smell them across the internet. This won't happen with Hawthorne.
I'll tell you, these colognes are pretty fucking good, I gotta say.
Well, with your full-throated endorsement like that, how can we resist? I can smell you from here.
And I smell fantastic, don't I?
You smell gorgeous.
Do you see?
Anyway, speaking of smelling things, let's segue to NXT. I got a lot of problems with you people. I don't know why they try to turn me off of this program in the first segment every week. And we're talking about NXT. This is for November 11th, 2020, if anybody's keeping score. The first segment is always either a 20-minute girls match involving two women who have a total weight of 117 pounds, or it's some kind of gaga with old Johnny Sameface. And they open the show up with, he's had the thing going on where he's scared of wheels, and he's cursed. He's cursed because every time he wins a title, he loses it in his first defense. And he's cursed because the wheel was coming up for Halloween Havoc, was always coming up in his trial run-throughs. It was coming up with some horrible match that was going to get him buried alive or put in a casket or whatever. But now that he won, apparently on the show last week that we didn't, or 2 weeks ago that we did not watch, he won the North American title. Now he's out there in the ring with his own wheel. He's got a wheel of challengers, and all the top guys' names are written on this wheel, except for in obvious tape and Sharpie, he's written the one job guy's name. And he recites a written bit where he tries to be entertaining, but he didn't believe what he was saying, or not only that, but he didn't try to make you believe it. He was just doing a performance. Where there's a wheel, there's a way. And he did the goofy walk. He actually said that. It's where there's a wheel, there's a way. And he did his goofy walk. And then he spun the gimmicked wheel and it picked the job guy. Because it not only stopped on his name, but it backed up and went forward a couple of times. So it's obvious. Here's why this doesn't work when you don't know how to do it. It doesn't work when the heel is telling you and showing you that it's obviously fixed. It works when the heel plays it straight and denies that anything is fixed, even when his shit falls apart and it's obvious. So they do wrestling angles that they've seen tape of or that they've heard people talk about, but they don't understand why they were done or in what context they were done. Anyway, so of course Leon Ruff comes in the ring, and he weighs 125 pounds. I mean, he made Brian Hildebrand look like Lex Luger, for fuck's sake. I can do all the skinny ones. If he gets a sunburn, he looks like a thermometer. He turns sideways, sticks his tongue out, he looks like a zipper. He uses Cheerios for a hula hoop. He's got to run around in the shower to get wet, whatever. So Gargano is, I don't know what he was announced at, but he's got to be 170 or under, and his opponent's 125 pounds. So this looked like the Anorexic Wrestling Federation. And of course, Johnny Sameface kicks the shit out of Leon Ruffin. Maybe he was Eddie. One of those Ruffins. Well, what Ruffin was in the Temptation?
David Ruffin. He was one of the most talented guys ever.
Yes, maybe Leon Ruffin is the son of David Ruffin, because I met the Temptations 30 years ago at the NAPTE convention in New Orleans, and they were about as big around as old Leon Ruffin is.
Yeah, but who was in the Temptations by that point? It was probably just Otis Williams and four other guys.
It was Eddie Kendricks.
No, 30 years? No way.
I got his goddamn autograph. I've got a picture with me and the LPWA girls and Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin.
There's no way Eddie Kendricks. Wait, LPWA, so that's what, 91?
90, 91, somewhere around there.
Didn't Eddie Kendricks die around that point?
Soon afterwards, but I didn't have anything to do with it.
But they weren't there with the Temptations. They were there, Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin were there on their own, not with Otis Williams and the Temptations, I'm assuming.
Well, no, they were goddamn wandering around. I didn't ask him his personal business, you son of a bitch. I was just, I was signing autographs at the booth, and I looked up, and well, goddamn, there's the Temptations. And they were all dressed up in suits. They were appearing for some reason, and I got them to sign a fucking card for me and had a picture taken with them.
David Ruffin died June 1st, 91.
All right. Well, I said they looked pretty sickly. They were probably all strung out on crack.
No, don't say that. Only David Ruffin was the one strung out.
All right, I don't know. But
Eddie Kendricks died October 5th, 92.
There you go. They're about as big around as hiccups, though, but they had $5,000 suits on. It wasn't 3 square inches of material. Anyway, so Leon Ruffin.
No, Leon, it's not Ruffin, it's Ruff.
Well, it is now. Maybe somebody will remember him. Johnny Sameface kicked the shit out of Leon Ruffin. I would say that this looked like the Mexican minis were wrestling each other, but all the Mexican minis outweighed Leon Ruffin. And then Damian Priest shows up at ringside, and Leon gets a roll-up for a 2 count, and then Priest is still there at ringside and doesn't really do anything, but suddenly Leon Ruff ducks a kick and rolls Johnny Sameface up 1, 2, 3 and wins the North American title. If they were going to do that, why didn't they do it when Priest showed up and fucking Gargano turned around and got rolled up? They just went another fucking couple minutes and then did the same basic thing. And then they did the comedy bit where Damian Priest is holding Leon's arm up and he puts the belt around his waist. When he throws his arms up, it fell to his feet. It wouldn't stay around his waist. So the North American champion is now a job guy. And they've switched it. Well, how many times recently? But obviously Gargano just won it 2 weeks ago, and now he's lost it. And Priest got even with him already. Imagine that. Did this work for you, dog?
No, it really didn't. We'll talk about the post-match thing, because that did work for me for different reasons. Did you see Triple H's tweet about this?
No.
It was a short video of Leon Ruff celebrating on the podium with Damian Priest, and the belt keeps falling down because he's too skinny. And Triple H said, "That's why we don't call it a belt." Congratulations to Leon Ruff.
Here's another example of people who have seen things in the past, but they didn't know how they were applied. The idea of, especially in the territories, the idea of an underneath guy or a job guy suddenly getting a big victory or even winning a title over an established main event guy has been done a million times, and when it's done it's caused by the fucking other top guy that main event guy that just did the job is going to be working with or currently in a program with or whatever. This is not revolutionary. But number one, their North American title, it's a national TV show, so you can't act like the territories who are switching the belt in Southeastern for 4 days or whatever. But also, it's not primarily comedy. It's primarily a tool of embarrassment or humiliation to heat up what you want to do. They did it in Memphis in '83 one time. The Fabulous Ones, hottest babyface tag team that they'd ever had. We're working with the Assassins, Roger Smith and Donnie Bass. And at the time, the Assassins were the World Tag Team Champions, or being billed as such. So on TV, I think it was Jimmy Hart runs his mouth, says, "We're going to defend the titles on TV today against Robert Reed and Ken Raper. Reed and Raper. And they're job guys. They've never won a match on television or anywhere else. So immediately the Assassins are kicking the shit out of these guys, and Hart's laughing and they're rubbing their face in it. But the Fabulous Ones come out and do something, and one of the Assassins gets pinned, and Ken Raper and Robert Reed are the World Tag Team Champions. Holy shit. Saturday morning, live TV, anything can happen. But at that point, they get hot and they change the card for Monday night so that the Assassins get their return match with Reed and Raper, followed by a lights out match or whatever kind of stipulation match with the Fabulous Ones and the Assassins. And Reed and Raper are the tag team champions for 48 hours until Monday night. And then the Assassins get in the ring, and I think juiced both of them, probably, I think, did a stretcher job on at least one, and the Fabulous Ones have to come out and save. And obviously now the Assassins get the belts back. And then they do a bloody fucking wild ass main event match with the Fabulous Ones and do a heat finish to come back the following week. But you don't just have this fucking guy for no reason roll the guy up, leave the ring with the belt. Now he's Damian Priest's little buddy, I guess. And it's just all a ha-ha thing for a main championship. I don't know. But the after thing, it's not that the thing in the back was necessarily any good or better or anything. It's just anything Damian Priest is in, he sounds natural. He got something out of this. He gave Leon Ruffin the keys to his rental car and said, "Take off. Johnny's going to be coming back for you." Then he's fucking with Johnny. He even doing this hokey shit, he still seems natural and comes off as believable in that situation, even when nobody else can. Do you get that from him, or is it just me?
I really liked the segment backstage, and it was all because of Damian Priest. He was so good. Just laughing in Gargano's face when he said, "Oh, this was a match we shouldn't have happened. You made the match, you idiot."
It was your idea.
He was great.
But now Leon Ruffin is the North American champion. We'll see what happens. But it's okay, actually, because everybody's got a title. I know this because the very next match was for a fucking title, the Cruiserweight title. Everybody's got a title here. And I don't see any size. Well, actually, I do see a size difference. The current Cruiserweight champion is much heavier than the current North American Heavyweight champion. Much heavier.
I think he's heavier than the NXT champion, Finn Balor, too.
Well, there you go. So it just, at this point, everybody does have a title. Anyway, it was Pablo, don't call me Santo Escobar, with the lucha suits in the corner against Jake Atlas. And Jake Atlas has been attacking these guys. Well, I thought it was a baseball bat a week or two ago. It might have been, but it was a lead pipe. At least he uses either one of them better than Moxley. At least when When old Jake Atlas hits one of them, they go down and sell it and stay down. I saw Moxley hit Kingston 3 times with a bat. Kingston got up and made a comeback. But this match, to me, was like counting snowflakes. There's a lot going on, but it all looks the same, and you get tired of it real quick. They just did the stuff that they normally do and that everybody else does, and then suddenly, in the middle of all this, Jake Atlas goes crazy and beats up all the seconds with the lead pipe, and that's the break spot. So in this program so far, 125-pound job guy's the North American champion, and the underneath guys are beating each other with lead pipes for break spots. I'm starting to see why everything looks the same. While I was watching this match, I just wrote down random thoughts. Did Austin Theory really quit wrestling? Because if he did, it's going to be a hard slog to watch 2 hours of NXT every week for Ciampa and Priest and Rhea Ripley. Atlas did a dive. Did you see Atlas do the dive where he hung both of his legs? He started out going head first, and then in midair he switched to, I'm going to throw my right leg out sideways first, and he caught both legs and almost went head first and killed both of them. So Gargano may have competition for the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Most Boring Award in Jake Atlas. He's another one of these guys. And then explain to me the finish. Atlas climbs to the top rope. Escobar walked over while he was selling, walked over to the ropes, turned his back to the guy that was climbing the top ropes, and bent over and stood there and waited for this move. And then Atlas comes off the top turnbuckle and cartwheels on the top rope and lands on his feet in front of Escobar. While Escobar watched him do it, and as soon as he landed on his feet in front of him, the Escobar just hooked him in a double arm kind of DDT thing on his knee, boom, and beat him 1, 2, 3. So I guess you could make the claim that, well, yeah, he was watching him do it, and that's why he caught him in that move, but he was also watching everything he did before that. What if he hadn't have known what he was going to do and he came off with something he couldn't have blocked? He was watching him come off the top rope and jump on top of him. Too many he's and hims in there, but you get the idea. It was just a staged whatever.
Yeah. It can't add too much more to that. Although, there's a lot of guys just waiting for something to happen or walking into something. On the other show later on, we'll talk about it. I saw a guy just walk casually into another guy holding a ladder about to hit him. So this stuff happens. And I agree with you.
The best way to walk into a ladder is casually.
I think Jake Atlas seems like he has some talent in the ring, but I don't know if it's him or the way NXT is retraining him or using him, but he shows no personality. There's nothing that stands out about him. He just seems like some guy.
He seemed like some guy running around beating people with a lead pipe. And, it's actually, that's kind of tough to pull off when you can be running around beating up people with a lead pipe and still have no personality. It's the quiet ones you got to watch. Raquel Gonzalez. She was supposed to face Xia Li? Supposed to face Xia Li, but Xia Li wasn't there, and instead, are they calling him Boa? Like a boa constrictor?
Yeah, I think we saw him wrestle at some point. I don't remember. It must have been when we first started watching NXT. He was one of the wrestlers. I forget what his first name was. It was something Boa.
Well, apparently now he's Xia Li's cohort, partner in crime, spokesperson. Xia Li wasn't there. He gets in the ring, no microphone or anything. Just gets in the ring in a suit and walks up and says, well, she's not here. So, and Raquel Gonzalez is like, well, she called me out. And he's like, well, she's not here. So bye. And he turns around to leave, and she boots him out on the floor and just kicks the shit out of him. And obviously what they're trying to do here is Raquel Gonzalez is a giant. She's a big girl. They want to get her over as an ass kicker. They want her to beat up a guy, but you can't have an intergender match because it's the WWE, and even they have standards. So this was a way of having an intergender match. and showing you how badass Raquel Gonzalez is without booking a man versus woman match. And she kicked shit out of him and left him laying. But I'm not even against that concept because, yes, she's a big girl and he's a putz. Nobody gives a shit about him. He's not like he's a main event, male talent. But couldn't they get into it and better just walk out? Well, she's not here. I'll see you later. And just might as well have said, just go ahead and beat me up. Because that was how obvious it was. Could they not have gone into this a little more creatively?
Well, let's rewind for a second. We saw at least 2 weeks where it happened, maybe even more, where Xia Li did a promo where she said, I have to win this match. You don't understand. I have to win. And then she went out and lost. It happened more than once. And now she doesn't come out here. Instead, this guy who is in cahoots with her. But this sets up everything else, I think, that happened in this bizarre segment. Xia Li has to win, and all of a sudden Xia Li is not there.
Well, I mean, I wasn't complaining because I didn't want to see Xia Li. And if it had been Xia Li, I would have fast-forwarded it. But anyway, Raquel Gonzalez did a good job of kicking the shit out of this guy. But then suddenly the lights go out, and this old Oriental man comes walking slowly out with an envelope in his hand, and old Boa gets down on his knees and is freaking out. And it apparently it's Pat Morita in the Karate Kid who reaches down and gives Boa the envelope and smudges ink on his hand, which Boa treats like it's battery acid. And then the old man leaves and walks out, and the announcers just started laying out and saying nothing. And we know that they were still there because we could hear them until suddenly this started happening, and then they just stopped talking. And wouldn't they be going, well, who the fuck is that guy?
That's the only thing they could have said, is what the hell is going on here?
Well, yeah, but laying out's even worse because then it's just like, well, we don't even know what to say here because nobody understands what's going on. If this guy is a new contract talent, I have a feeling some of the people on the roster are going to have to modify their style of work.
If the old Asian guy is a new contract performer?
Yes. Some guys are going to have to fucking modify their style of work. I don't believe, hey, he's too old to be going for some of this shit the new kids do. Anyway.
That segment made no sense.
No.
It was so bizarre.
And for the people out there who go, well, it's long-term dramatic storytelling and you'll understand soon. God damn, every segment with every underneath clown in the world has to be a mystery or a goddamn gimmick match or an angle. This is why none of this shit stands out.
The lights start going and I'm like, oh my God, who's going to come out? Like, I don't know where this is going. It's already bizarre and weird. Who's going to come out? And all of a sudden it's some guy that I've never seen before.
It's fucking Charlie Chan.
See, I like this.
No, it was Key Luke in Kung Fu. He was trying to snatch the pebble from my hand, Grasshopper. It's time for you to leave.
I'm at the point where it's all so ridiculous. I was able to, this was the first Wednesday night in a while I was able to just sit back and laugh at some of this stuff because it's so stupid. And this was the highlight of the stupidity on NXT. The unknown Asian man who had a light show who came out to hand an envelope to Boa, who just got his ass kicked by Raquel Gonzalez because Xia Li disappeared.
Moving on. I started to say Les Thatcher. Les Thatcher did not attack someone. Timothy Thatcher attacked the stooge from last week that beat him up in his own Thatcher's Thatch Can segment.
Les Thatcher attacked his TV if he was watching this.
Yeah, well, yeah. He kicked his screen in. But Timothy Thatcher beat this guy up in the back. Do you remember when brawls in the back of the arena were only done 5 or 6 times every show, so it meant something? It's just, you can't even remember how many times have people been attacked in the back room in the last month on every program. Anyway, next match was Toni Storm versus Mrs Sameface. I love Toni Storm. I think she looks gorgeous. She looks like a star. But Candice LeRae had wings on her jacket, and I used them to fly through this. I do not like Toni Storm enough to watch this gray-haired pixie do whatever it is she does. And by the way, Mrs Sameface won with her feet on the ropes, but beat Toni Storm, which is halfway criminal. And then the ghost-masked person hit the ring, and they got some rotten heat on Storm, and here comes Shotzi, and the heels got rotten heat on her, and then the ghost unmasked as, oh my God, shock of shocks, Indy Hartwell. And then Cletus Tubbs came into the ring. And then we saw Joe Schmo. That was an earth-shaking reveal under that ghost mask, wasn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it was the person who, didn't she previously gift the Garganos a TV set?
Yes, and then dramatic foreshadowing and long-term storytelling, old Candace was going, I think I like her. And then a month later, she's in a ghost mask. I don't fucking know. Oof. You have anything to say about this?
No, I mean, I guess I don't know if this is the place to say it, but I will anyway. You know, I've seen women's wrestling matches all through the years. I have videotapes from the beginning. I have photos of everyone from Mildred Burke on up. It's just, and I love women. I love beautiful women. I always have, I always will. It's
a habit you've had for a long time now.
And I'm not exactly complaining, but with that said, does every woman need her ass to just be hanging out? It's every woman in wrestling. Every woman. It's like you could wear shorts where it exposes a little bit of what you have, but there are women with just their asses just hanging out. And I'm not saying I wouldn't love those asses, but I'm just saying, does every woman need their ass hanging out? And are we allowed to say anything about the asses if they're hanging out, or is it still like, you can't say something about a woman's ass? But why? She's on TV. Her ass is just hanging all over the place. That's my only thought about the Toni Storm Candice LeRae match.
That should be a companion piece. Einar, Rocky, whoever's out there,
Am I wrong?
Rewrite Jacking It in San Diego to asses hanging out in AEW or NXT.
Wrong? Do you know what I mean? I mean, like,
well, I've never really opposed seeing any of those.
I'm not saying I'm opposed with it, but like,
now that you mention it, a lot of them do hang low, Sweet Chariot.
I mean, women always wore like revealing-ish outfits, you know, a one-piece swimsuit or whatever it was. But Jesus Christ, there's more ass on wrestling than any other show on TV.
And it's just hanging out.
It's just ass everywhere. That's my only thoughts about the Toni Storm Candice. But you can apply ass everywhere to the entire wrestling business right now.
Well, I'll agree with you there. Even when it's not a girls' match. The next match, Timothy Thatcher and Dexter Loomis. And okay, folks, I have shit on Dexter Loomis's gimmick in the past because I think it limits him and it's somewhat plodding. But after not only AEW, but the first hour of this program, to see two grown adult men not doing gymnastics alone, that is Shangri-La.
Well, hold on. Did you see how they set this match up?
Well, I don't know now.
You may have fast-forwarded through this. So Dexter Loomis, they cut to the back. There's so many backstage segments. At this point with NXT, I'm starting to enjoy the backstage segments more than the in-ring segments. So in the back, there's just a bunch of wrestlers huddled around watching Dexter Loomis draw a picture. He's like an evil Jerry Lawler, a serial killer Jerry Lawler.
I saw people in the back drawing pictures while it was coming out of a break. I was on fast forward and I didn't do anything to stop.
It wasn't people. It was Dexter Loomis, the psychotic serial killer-ish wrestler. He draws cartoons. So he's in the back drawing a picture of, I think it was Cameron Grimes running away from a zombie referee. And then when Timothy Thatcher started beating up whatever that guy's name was, he like threw him into the...
He threw him and knocked the picture down.
He knocked the cartoon down, and that upset Dexter Loomis. Dexter Loomis's artwork being ruined, that triggered him. And William Regal instantly signed this match.
So they're fighting about a video game on one channel and a sketch pad on the other channel. Okay, got it.
Well, one's more old school and one's more modern wrestling.
So in this match, the psycho killer Loomis was the babyface. Okay, great fucking positioning. But anyway, the point is these guys, they hit hard and it made sense for the most part. I still think the gimmick limits Dexter Loomis, but he did more here. And to me, he found a higher gear in his comeback for once. And he's a great athlete. He does some nice shit. I'm just not sure about the mono pace that sometimes that he does. Thatcher's really good. Great facials, knows his shit, works his gimmick. He's obviously a good wrestler. And they had really kicked it in, and I was enjoying this. But then here's the thing. I was enjoying it till they started doing the fighting on the top rope deal. One's climbed up, the other one's climbed up on the other side to catch him, and they try to jockey for position and fight back and forth. And it always goes on so long when you cannot suspend your disbelief that when guys are balanced up on the ropes and guys that size that they can't be knocked off. And they didn't do it here, but sometimes as on the other channel, over at All Friends Wrestling Network, they're actually holding on to each other, obviously, to keep each other up there. But anyway, they were up on the rope here for a while, and finally Thatcher takes a bump, and Loomis does the swanton and went straight past him. And it just took his own backdrop off the top rope into the ring. And not only that, but they replayed it. And it just killed it visually. And Loomis, just because you can do that move doesn't mean you should. A grown adult man with a physique like that size, you don't need to do that. And for one of the reasons you don't need to do it is because when Jeff Hardy at 198 pounds or whatever lands on somebody, you ever seen that? He knocks the fuck out of him. Because that's the only way it looks good. Otherwise it looks fake, which is what fucking it just looked like. And when you're 250 pounds... you can't fucking land on somebody that stiff to make that thing look good. So anyway, right there, boom, I was out of it visually. And then suddenly, Loomis got the choke on Thatcher that he uses, that side choke. But Cameron Grimes jumped up on the apron. Loomis shoves Thatcher into Cameron Grimes, but then as they jockeyed around, Thatcher hooked him and rolled him up 1, 2, 3. I was like, what the fuck? Then Grimes attacked Loomis and put a burlap sack over his head and beat the shit out of him. Remember when every match didn't end in another angle? And they put the burlap sack over his head so it wouldn't be the plastic bag. TBS complained about that 30 years ago, but you can see through a burlap sack. I assume everybody that's been in a burlap sack knows that.
Have you been in a burlap sack?
Well, that's none of your business, pal. Only every once in a while on certain nights. If the right thing comes up when we spin the wheel. But anyway.
Ass everywhere.
Ass everywhere, all over, hanging out. There was a lot of good parts of this match. I thought the swanton was unfortunate and kind of a popcorn fart, and I didn't get the finish, the whole 9 yards. But every match ends in an angle. Every match ends in a brawl. There's a brawl 5 times a night in the back on these shows. It's just, I don't know, your thoughts.
Can't really add too much to that. It was all right. I didn't know what to think of it. Dexter Loomis hasn't done much for me. I like Timothy Thatcher. I don't like the way he's used ever. And then the burlap, I don't care.
All right. The Tommaso Ciampa promo, he plugged Killer Kowalski and Harley Race. And it was a good promo, but he sounds like he believes what he's saying. And with some of that 2020 locker room culture, I bet there's a little fucking ribbon on the square there, as they say. He was on location in John Moxley's broom closet somewhere, but okay, the dimly lit atmospheric thing. But, Tommaso Ciampa comes off like a loose cannon. He looks like a guy that might flip. He sounds like he believes what he's saying. He's talking about tough guys that have to tell you they're tough and the locker room culture, blah, blah, blah. It was all not only believable material, but he sounded like he meant it. So if they're writing that for him, he's doing a good job of it, or elsewise he's just doing his own thing.
You know, it's funny he brings up Harley and Kowalski. Did you ever hear that story about the first time Triple H met Harley Race?
I did not.
Apparently in WCW, when he was terrorizing, you know, he was a Killer Kowalski student.
Right.
And he gets sent down to Atlanta, and he meets Harley Race backstage, and he goes over to him, and whatever he says, Mr. Race, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Terrorizing. I was trained by Killer Kowalski. And Harley Race just looked up and said, Kowalski, he was the shits.
Well, anyway, the next brief little package, Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai are headed to a showdown for the NXT women's title. Every part that contained Rhea Ripley, I loved in this. Every part that contained Io Shirai, I am so way past tired of Japanese women wrestlers.
Oh,
they're
why?
everywhere.
That's ridiculous. Come on.
No, because they're everywhere. And subtitles ain't gonna sell no tickets, by the way. And she's half the size of Rhea Ripley. And I'm just tired of if every single television program did not have multiple Japanese women wrestlers who speak the same racist style, broken English promos.
Come on.
Who's the one that's fucking screaming?
That's Asuka, and yeah, that's a little bit of a stereotypical Japanese woman, but
a little stereotypical.
Io Shirai isn't doing that.
No, she's got subtitles,
but she's not screaming in that fashion either.
I don't want to see Io Shirai against Rhea Ripley. I want to see Rhea Ripley against actually very few women in wrestling because nobody else can stand up to her. But I realized this. She's 23 years old, right? Can you tell me that she is not an action movie star? Can you tell me, is there a female action movie star in Hollywood right now?
No, and you know, there have been various women in MMA who
tried Gina Carano. Rousey.
Gina Carano at least is still doing it. She's in The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, the Star Wars series. Ronda Rousey, I don't know if that really worked well.
No, and the problem is because they may be legitimate shooters and tough, but they look like real girls. Rhea Ripley looks like a fucking Amazon. She looks like a fucking movie star. She may do the Rock thing. I'm giving her 3 to 5 years in wrestling. If somebody puts her in a fucking movie and it's not a shit movie, she will be the biggest female action movie star in the history of Hollywood.
They should put her in like a Liam Neeson role, where just the whole movie is her just kicking the shit out of people.
That's what I'm saying. If you put her in any kind of fucking outfit like that, remember Mad Maxine?
Yeah.
Except Mad Maxine couldn't work and was not as cosmetically pleasing by a long shot, but a 6 foot tall woman with the fucking outfit and the fucking hair, and she can already talk like this, and you can tell that sometimes she's doing verbiage and sometimes it's her, but it's all good. She may not last as long as The Rock did before somebody snatches her up and puts her in the movies.
Well, you said you don't want to see Io Shirai versus her because Io's half her size, beyond other things that I don't agree with about Io Shirai. But to that point, just about everyone's going to be half her size. I mean, they're Raquel Gonzalez is obviously a bigger girl. Charlotte, it wasn't a big size difference.
Raquel's going to be a project because she's not there experience-wise with her work yet. Charlotte was great.
But, size-wise, Charlotte matched up. But most girls in wrestling are not going to be as big as Rhea.
Well, then I suggest they start fucking getting new boots because the heels are going to be worn out of the ones they've got because they're going to be laying down for old Rhea Ripley quite a bit. You could always tell in the old days if a guy was doing good or not. Because if his boots, if the toes were worn out, he was going over. If the heels were worn out, he was getting beat. Anyway, speaking of the best heel in wrestling, see that, like that transition? Pat McAfee comes to the ring with his entire crew of 2 bald-headed guys and the orange Englishman, Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne looks like Kramer when he started tanning with butter. You remember that episode?
I'm still going with Becky Lynch with pubic hair glued to her face.
Why? He's so fucking orange. Anyway, McAfee has become the best heel in the business in the last 3 weeks. And I wish they'd drop the phony crowd booing when he's cutting his promo, because he's so real, it just makes it sound phony. It reminds you that they're trying to remind you that he's being naughty rather than just you hearing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. He's so good, and he's a wrestling heel. He's not even being a heel like MJF, where MJF's obviously had a great delivery and had material that was all of his own, but at the same time, McAfee's just so natural, saying, "You bunch of stupid fucking losers, you rednecks and hillbillies." He's an old-time wrestling fan. And I was looking forward to seeing anybody associated with Pat McAfee, even old Birch and Lorcan, but then I found out they were going to be fighting Fan Dancer. And I wrote, God damn it, for the tag team title. So I watched this to listen for McAfee. This match was like watching the Kelly twins against the Batten twins. Remember Pat and Mike Kelly, big bald-headed, fucking heels, and the Batten twins, identical fucking baby faces. It's 2 bald guys against 2 guys who don't look identical, but they're wearing the identical shit, and their design of their tights and their boots, it looks like they're wearing bell bottoms or something. I don't know. I just hate the whole Fan Dancer gimmick. Their team, the entrances, whether they come burping here now, because I've got gas. The entrances the whole time. I don't care if you cut that out. Give me gas. They gave me the sour belches. The entrances, the whole fucking male dancer thing. Fuck. Anyway, they did at the break spot. My favorite spot in the whole match was Fan Dancer number 1, whichever one, threw one of the heels into the announce desk, and the heel flipped and kicked McAfee right in the fucking face. And he sold it better than anything in the first half of the program. But yeah, Birch and Lorcan need some way that you can tell them more readily apart. They're wearing black boots and black tights, and they both have bald heads. Somebody go to long tights. Somebody change up your look a little bit. And they've been kind of used as kind of a bland team so far. McAfee's all the color in this group. Okay, so but they're good, solid workers. But Drake Maverick comes out, and McAfee's bumping for Drake Maverick, and then Dunn takes him out. There's a bunch of interference, and Birch and Lorcan retain, but then Drake comes back in, and the heels beat him up, and they have a big schmoz. If this had been main event babyfaces, it would have been great. It was okay just to see McAfee's group kick the shit out of people, but that this much competition was given McAfee's heel banned by 2 male strippers and a goddamn, let's face it, a fucking guy in the Marco stunt weight category. Whatever. What'd you think?
I didn't care much for the match. Like you, I'm kind of sick of Breezango or Fan Dancer, as you call them. I think McAfee is fantastic. It's impossible to cheer him.
Yeah.
He's so good as a heel.
Even when they start fighting, he puts his hands up and kind of prances away like, ooh, yeah. I'm cover up because I'm a big pussy.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
He's great.
You see Rip Rogers all around him as far as applying psychology toward being a heel.
Here's what my biggest complaint with him is, and this isn't anything personal against Lorcan and Birch, but when McAfee's out there doing a promo saying, us 4, this group is like the best group in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they would have put McAfee with 4 guys. And again, this isn't against them, but just it doesn't look like it fits. It doesn't feel like it fits. McAfee with 3 other guys, there had to be 3 other better picks. There just had to be.
One would think.
Then McAfee with 2 British guys and a bald guy. who tags up with one of the British guys.
Yeah.
It's such a makeshift faction.
We've mentioned before that the reason why the Horsemen worked, and of course this is what they're playing off of, the greatest four-man faction. The reason why that worked is because all those guys looked like they belonged together socially, personally, outside the ring, people that would be gravitated toward one another, except for Ole. And of course, Ole was in it because he and Arn were allegedly related. It all worked, the combinations, until the mid-90s when they prostituted that too, and then it didn't work anymore. But these guys, I don't see McAfee hanging out with any of the other three of these fucking guys. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm like you, though. Anyway, you know what? After this program, Brian, before I watched All Friends Wrestling, after NXT, I was starving because I hadn't had breakfast. And you know what? I didn't have too much time. I didn't have time to fry the eggs and fry the bacon and make the biscuits and stir up the sausage gravy and have a proper breakfast, the way that we do down south here that you are completely unaware of. So what I did was I had a great tasting, quick, and healthy breakfast that I could be proud of. The fine folks at Magic Spoon, thanks to them, I had all the boxes of Magic Spoon in the closet, and I could just go over there, pour some out. I don't even put the milk on it. It's so tasty. It's like eating healthy potato chips that taste like cocoa or fruity or frosted and blueberry. It's like eating candy that doesn't poison you. It's like eating handfuls of goodness that are keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. So if you got kids in the house, pour some of this in a bowl, hit it with the milk, give them a spoon, and then tell them to go piss off. You take care of your kids that easy. If you've got a significant other that gripes at you because they don't fix breakfast, do the same thing. Bowl, cereal, milk, boom. And they'll have a smile on their face because it tastes so good. You, Brian Last, you practically snort lines of this stuff. I've seen you on some of our Zoom calls. You've been crushing up the frosted or the blueberry, and you've been snorting it with a straw. Anyway,
let's not encourage the listeners to snort Magic Spoon. It is a delicious cereal.
No, you
that you should put in a bowl and eat with a spoon because it's fantastic.
Got no taste buds in your nose. You can smell it, but you can't taste it. You put it on your tongue and you can taste it. So just do this, folks. Go to Magic Spoon. What are you laughing at? I'm telling people to eat healthy stuff, and it's good for you and it tastes good. Go to magicspoon.com/Jim and build your own custom variety box and try it today. Use the promo code JIM at checkout, that's JIM, to get free shipping. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. But you'd have to be a hard-hearted, cruel, no-good, gum-bumping sack of snake feces to have any problem with this fine cereal. It's the best in the world. Magicspoon.com/Jim for free shipping. Cocoa, fruity, frosted, blueberry. Tastes amazing. Do not snort it. What are you doing this week besides snorting your breakfast?
You could snort wrestling history on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Once again, don't snort Magic Spoon. Eat it. It's delicious. We love our sponsors.
We have to make that plain.
Let's make sure we specify that. But you could snort all the wrestling history you could shake your fist at on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Follow all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. The latest Super Studcast for patrons of Ron Fuller's Studcast is available right now at patreon.com/Studcast. The Tennessee Stud does his first ever interactive Ask the Stud Super Studcast, where listeners get to talk to the stud and ask him questions. It's a lot of fun. Check that out. Plus, of course, when you become a patron, you get access to all the other Super Studcasts, all the interviews and historical shows. Patreon.com/Studcast. This week On Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, John's special guest is none other than the Booker himself, Jeff Baldwin, and they talk all about Georgia Championship Wrestling. Check that out today. It's a fun look at Georgia Championship Wrestling. McAdamPod.com. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership!
Stop mocking me!
God,
did you see a
damn it.
picture I tweeted out the other day of, I was on the way back from Dunkin' Donuts getting my coffee,
Oh, for heaven's sake.
and someone in front of me is driving really slow. Now, I drive fast everywhere. I love driving fast. I hit speed bumps fast. I can't drive slow. I always want to get somewhere. I always got something to do. And I like driving fast.
Well, you got to go have your alignment redone or get your shocks replaced.
So this guy's driving like a ding-a-ling in front of me, and I'm really starting to lose my temper. And I'm about to start honking him, because that's my first move. Just hold the horn down. Just make the person look in their rearview mirror and go, what the hell's happening behind me? And when they realize there's someone
You're
trying
the
to
kind
get
of
somewhere,
person that people take a stick to down here. You realize that, don't you?
I've got plenty of weapons. I'm more than happy to go mano-a-mano with anyone in my car. But anyway, I'm trying to get around this guy. Can't get around him. It's 2-lane. And I'm about to honk the horn, and I look at his license plate. God damn it, it's Mothership. I couldn't believe it. And thankfully, this guy was driving so slow that I was able to take my camera and my phone and take a picture of it, which I posted. There's some other guy out here.
Reason he was going so slow is because the mothership was coming in for a landing.
I'll tell you. But on the topic of Mothership, we are right now putting it together because the results come out tonight as we're recording. The Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame special, where various voters get together, discuss their ballots, discuss who got in, who didn't get in, and give their thoughts. It's always a very insightful look at wrestling history. It'll be out next week, 605pod.com. Check out last year's episode, which featured Jim Cornette. He voted that year. 605pod.com.
I voted every year until Uncle Dave lost his mind and pissed me off.
Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
Yeah, mother something. We won't go there. All right, but we still have a Patreon, don't we?
We absolutely do. It's very popular.
Well, why don't you ever talk about it?
I talk about it on the drive-thru, where I control the pace of the show.
Well,
But
it's not
here,
like-
on the experience where things get out of control, because you're in charge, I don't necessarily get the opportunities I would normally get.
so now so I'm holding the program down, huh?
You're driving in front of me in a car with the license plate, the Mothership.
Yeah, and I got my finger up over my shoulder in the rearview mirror, too, going, that's what I think of you, pal. Stay back there.
And I'm honking that horn. But listen,
I'm the kind of person that hits my brakes when somebody comes up too close behind me.
well, don't hit your brakes right now. Speed up and head over to patreon.com/Cornette if you enjoy the drive-thru. If you enjoy the experience, this is the place where you can get access to the archives. Every single episode, going back to the very, very beginning in November of 2013, with new episodes, new classic episodes added each and every Sunday night. It's over 2 years worth of episodes up right now. Patreon.com/Cornette for the low price.
2 years worth of drive-through and experience.
That's right. For the low price of just $5 a month, gets you access to all of this content, great conversations. The first time Jim has ever ripped on people like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Here where this all started. Patreon.com/Cornette. And to everyone who's been asking, and I'm flattered that so many people ask, but I think it's less about me and more about what came before me. I will be debuting on the show soon, in the next few weeks, for patrons. Patreon.com/Cornette.
We're almost there to you.
Almost.
Where our listenership really exploded once we had the personnel change.
It did.
All right, we've put this off as long as we possibly can. We're going to close up with the recap of All Friends Wrestling in this bloody parade of terror. Remind me to ask you about ratings. Sometimes I forget, but by the time we go through this, maybe you'll have them, and we'll see who won this joust. But this was the program. How was it worded? Tony Khan put out a tweet that this program, the balance of power was going to change in wrestling with this program. And then he's walked it back. Well, I mean, it's going to start to change. It didn't really change here, but it's going to start to change. And things we're going to do from here are going to make it change. Can you help shed some light on this verbiage?
I'm going to look for the tweet right now. Hold on, because I don't follow this goof. Let me see.
Well, but point is, it was a statement that was strongly worded enough that a lot of people were going, oh, you better be careful when you make statements like that and it's not something big. And I think we established it wasn't something big when nobody could really establish what it was that changed the balance of power in wrestling.
Well, I see several things here.
And most people were wrong with what they did pick, right?
Tony Khan tweeted out yesterday, tonight we have a great lineup for AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time. For the rest of 2020, AEW will keep delivering great matches on Wednesday nights. Plus, there are massive surprises ahead. Please join us on TNT tonight. The balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight. So then
that's a pretty declarative statement, isn't it?
So then he retweeted a video, I guess, of him in the ring before the show, telling the fans to stay to the end. I promise you it will be good. And then he retweeted that saying, stay to the end of Dynamite. I promise you it will be good. Thank you very much to all of you awesome wrestling fans. So basically he's saying there'll be something at the end of the show. Psst, shh, psst. There'll be something at the end of the show. Don't tune out. Stay. Don't leave.
And that's like when some of the girls at the matches every week used to get up during the main event and start head back to the back so they wouldn't miss anybody. And one of the real smart rats would say, wait a minute, hold on, they're going to do something here.
And then there's another tweet. Thank you to everyone who watched tonight. It's great to get Pac back in AEW. We've made some big announcements and huge matches for next week and weeks to come into December. Tonight opened a new chapter. I promise indelible moments on Dynamite are still coming in 2020. And then once again, wait a minute.
I promise indelible moments are still coming because we didn't give you any indelible moments tonight.
Well, we'll talk about that. Thank you to everyone who watched AEW Dynamite last night. A shift in wrestling's balance of power has begun.
And
the winners will be wrestling fans. He's such a geek. Oh my God. This is why the soccer analysts in England hate him. Oh my God.
Can you imagine Vince McMahon saying these things out loud in public to people? Anyway.
What a geek.
The show started good. You got Taz and Cage and Starks out there. Taz is good promo. The problem I had with this was Taz comes out with Cage and Starks. They're talking about Darby Allin because obviously that's their issue, but there's Darby Allin all alone in the bleachers, sitting there in his gear with his title belt over his shoulder. And when Taz starts talking about him or talking to him, they already had the spotlight, but boom, they put the spotlight on him. This wasn't staged at all. Taz did a good promo and tried to put Brian Cage over, which he does a good job of verbally until Cage starts wrestling, and then he gets less over again. And he put Matt Sydal over also verbally. That's the opening match, Brian Cage and Matt Sydal. And Matt Sydal was announced at 166 pounds. I don't know that I heard Cage's, but Cage apparently has 90-plus pounds on Matt Sydal, right? In this, it's going to be a big man, little man match. Matt Sydal, as Taz mentioned, even has a victory over Chris Jericho in the past. So, anyway, this is right? It's a 160-something pound guy, veteran, against a giant 250-plus pound bodybuilding beast. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say there, yeah.
Okay, I just want you to say right. Because within 17 seconds of the bell ringing, Brian Cage was on his ass in the corner, turnbuckles being drop-kicked in the face. And then he took over and manhandled Sydal and dominated him and got a long heat on him with a few hope spots. But they gave the people what they should have worked for at the start and then had to start all over again and build it up and give them something they'd already seen already. You don't do a match this way. Start out, let Cage muscle Sydal around like he was doing in the body of the match. Let him fucking not give him just ridiculous bump over and over again, but out muscle him, throw him away, foil him with his strength. Sydal can't figure out how to get the fucking key to this thing. Then suddenly, Cage, a few minutes into the match, stumbles or misses something, and Sydal gets a springboard or a drop kick, and he takes the big man, and the people will pop big for Cage just taking a bump. And then let Sydal have a flurry that's a little more sustained, because now that he's got him rocking and rolling, and he's drop kicking, he's flying crossbody and whatever the fuck, and Cage is off kilter. And then Cage comes up with something where he catches him out of fucking midair and slams him for a big bump, and then he gets some real heat on him. Whereas before he was just out muscling and foiling Sydal's offense. Now you can do a short but more intense set of heat that won't be so long and doesn't require the guy to take such punishment from a guy 100 pounds heavier than he is. But then suddenly, after that long heat, Sydal was fresh enough to go through complicated gymnastics with Cage in his comeback. You saw this, where now they're ducking and dodging and cartwheeling and doing everything. And then suddenly, Sydal throws Cage, or Cage takes a bump, rolls out on the ramp, the wooden ramp, and Sydal gives Brian Cage the Meteora, they call it, the double knees into the chest. He jumps off the top rope, plants both knees in Cage's chest while he's standing up, and drives him down to the ramp. The goddamnedest the goddamnedest bump I've ever seen. Cage took it perfectly. He went flat down on that fucking hard-ass ramp. So did Sydal, knees first, right over Cage's shoulders, because he gave it to Cage safe. He almost just crippled himself. I can't believe he didn't jack both his knees up. That kind of impact with your knees bent in car wrecks is what tears your MCL. It looked fantastic. You saw the bump, right, that I'm speaking of?
Yeah, of course.
What a fucking move. I rewound it and watched it 3 or 4 times. And then I continued watching. And immediately after that, Cage rolled into the ring after taking that hell of a fucking move. And Sydal, instead of going in to try to cover him, went up to the top rope and came off. But Cage jumped to his feet. The guy who'd just been given that horrible move. Cage jumps to his feet. Sydal come off the top rope, landed in the ring on his feet, threw some kicks at Cage. Cage picked him up for a power bomb. Sydal sunset flipped and bridged to his feet, threw more kicks, and then gave Cage a screwy fucking suplex of some kind. After one of the goddamn most impressive moves I've ever seen, I remember the territories where nobody had a fucking finish that looked this good ever. And it was dangerous to do. And they got in and just jumped up and started doing more moves to each other. And at that point, it completely degenerated into them just doing shit to each other back and forth, and Cage working like he was the same size as Matt Sydal. And then suddenly, Sydal comes off the top again, and then Cage becomes a monster again and catches him in midair in a vertical suplex position and drops him in like a fucking Michinoku driver fucking what's this, I'm sure excrement, know the name of it. 1, 2, 3. For AEW, this was a great match. And Cage has got a ton of potential, but he needs heavy mentorship because he has no idea how to work as big and impressive as he is. And how they did that fucking move and that not be the finish. And you know what? Some people are it couldn't be the finish. Sydal wasn't going to win. In that case, he shouldn't have fucking done it. Because how you could do that move and have either one of them get up from it. All right, so this didn't suck, but my God, that was the most impressive thing I've ever seen, and then they just shit on it and went to a goofy finish. What'd you think?
You know, I was conflicted about this first match. Let me first say that it was one of the things on the show I had the least problem with. I get that Brian Cage is really athletic for a big muscle head, and he could do a lot of these moves that the younger Yeah, not younger, but the smaller high flyers can do. But it is a little weird watching him go back and forth with someone who is so much smaller than him, even though he can do this stuff. So that's the part that I just can't get into. You know, every match in AEW, I mean, there have been a small handful of matches that have been under 4 minutes. Everything goes for a while. Everything is an even contest, a 50-50 match until the end. But, you know, with that said, I thought it was fine. It's not the style of wrestling I like, but it wasn't terribly offensive. And I thought the open of the show between this and the next segment were great. It's everything after that I had a problem with. So I can't complain too much about this. Not exactly the way I would have done it, the style of wrestling I like, but at this point, the things that are the least offensive are the things I'm not going to complain about.
Well, yeah, we are grading on the AEW curve, or the modern wrestling curve, or whatever. So just because they did something that, you know, would have been a moment like Mankind's toss off the cage or my scaffold match bump, if it had actually been made to mean anything, they could have replayed it over and over. Now nobody remembers it because it didn't even lead to a cover.
I mean, can you imagine like Tiger Mask? And I love Tiger Mask, Sayama, versus like Big John Studd. And it's just a 50-50 match, and eventually John Studd starts doing the kicks and the topes and stuff, but it doesn't kill or wipe out Tiger Mask. It just keeps going. It's like that. I mean, Cage is a big, I know he's not a tall guy, but he's 3 times the size and width of a Matt Sydal and most of his opponents. So it gets a little weird when all of a sudden he can't finish anyone off, and he's just doing all the high spots they do. He's obviously a talented guy, but I wouldn't have him doing all this stuff. But again, I'm not their core audience, so what do I know?
Well, you just want to get to the next segment because it was your all-time favorite.
Let me just say, I'm going to say something before we get going. This next segment is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. This is the best segment in the history of AEW. You get every emotion, every feeling you would get from AEW in this one segment. It starts off and you're like, all right, let's see where this goes. And then you're like, what the hell is this? And then you're like, oh my God, this is awful. And then it's, holy shit, where did that come from? This is awesome. And then it goes right back to, oh, it's AEW. There is so much that happens here. I rewound and watched this 3 times. I watched this live. I had to do something at 8:30. So I only had a half-hour window I could watch one of these shows live. I chose AEW. So I watched this live as it happened. I sat at my desk. I was howling with laughter. I thought this was the greatest thing ever. I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought they were going to do a Cody's having an affair angle. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. This is the greatest. But then it went in a completely different direction. And it was one of the most beautiful train wrecks I've ever seen. And at its peak, at its greatest moments, it was fantastic. And at its worst moments, it was something I could just be entertained by.
It didn't have the shock appeal, no pun intended, of the Shockmaster, but it was really spectacularly bad television in the same vein.
It was beautifully bad television. I couldn't look away. I laughed. I covered my mouth and said, oh my God. It was perfection. In the world of AEW, it was perfection. This is the greatest segment in the history of AEW.
Well, let's explain for the folks who didn't watch the program or don't watch until we talk about it so you know what to look out for. Cody has his big entrance. He's dressed in a suit. He looks professional except for the neck tattoo, but he's coming out and the music and the cheers and everything. And I thought this was going to be some kind of serious interview segment or something involving Cody. And the first thing that I wrote down was that I know we've talked about this before. I like Cody's promos, even if you think sometimes they veer into, and I agreed with you a time or two, the theatrical or maybe too grandiose in their soliloquy. He delivers things easily. He likes being out there. He's relaxed. I hear Dusty in his cadence, if not in the actual verbiage. And by the time that I said that, he's talking and a woman walks into the ring that we've never seen before from behind him. And, he realizes that she's there. And he turns around and he says, "Can I help you?"
I was dying by this point. I was like, what is going on here? This is amazing.
Because this woman, she's a tall, striking-looking black woman with blonde hair and a red outfit, and she's got abs. As a matter of fact, at first I thought, "Oh my God, it's Linda Miles. She's back."
Oh, don't say that.
Well, and now I don't want to besmirch the name of Linda Miles after I heard this promo. And this woman starts trying to talk to Cody Rhodes. And as Mama Cornette used to say, she couldn't say suey if the hogs had her. She couldn't say shit if she had a mouthful. It was Big Mama 85 Jim Crockett level bad. I wrote, "Oh my God." She's like, "Cody, I've looked for you, or I've tried to find you, or I've wanted to confront you, or whatever. I've looked in bars. I've looked in cars."
You see, that's why at the beginning I thought it was going to be, "Cody, we've been having an affair." I was like, "Oh my God, where are they going with this?"
Well, I didn't even think that, because I thought, my God, I don't know what I thought, but this girl was awkward. She was gangly and nervous, had no idea what she was doing, had no business being on national television. She had memorized some shit she was supposed to say. She couldn't get her name out. Is it Jane Cargill? Well, might as well have given her, fucking Eustace McFingermang McGee. Give her something else even harder to pronounce.
Von Hepper Trepper.
Von Hepper Trepper. And she was trying to lay out some kind of story, and Cody kept standing there, and you could tell by mental telepathy he was trying to will her to get this out. And I wrote, "Why is this happening?" It sounded like the fucking county fair speech by Don Knotts in The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. "What do you know about giants? Who are giants? What are giants? Let me clarify this. I know a giant." And Cody's looking at his watch, right? And JR says, "Well, this has been riveting." She has, in a monotonous, machine-like delivery, beating around the bush. Then she finishes apparently what she's saying and leaves the ring. But then when she gets to the stage, she turns around and there's more, and it starts going longer. And she reveals her giant friend's name, because that's the whole thing. Is Dustin's been saying, or Dustin, Cody's been saying he's a giant killer. Well, you shouldn't say that, because I know a giant. And the giant's name is Shaq. Well, nobody popped, because the last thing that anybody sitting at home or probably in that building was thinking about when they're talking about giants in wrestling is Shaq. I thought she said Shrek. I thought they're doing a crossover with the goddamn Pixar or whatever. And then the announcers had to jump in and say, "Oh, she means Shaquille O'Neal?" Well, now if she'd have said that, everybody'd known who the fuck she was talking about. Even on a wrestling program.
Well, everyone, if you say Shaq, everyone knows what you're talking about.
I didn't get Shaq in the context of this unknown woman that's never been seen before out on a fucking outlaw wrestling program, and suddenly she's going to be talking about a giant basketball player. It didn't register to me. I bet it didn't register to a lot of people.
Where did she come from?
Jumped in.
Did she hop the rail?
No, she walked out behind the ring down the ramp.
Yeah, where did she come from?
She came from the entranceway.
No, she didn't come from the entranceway. I thought she came up from the floor.
I thought she came from the entranceway.
I like when she would just randomly pose, when she would randomly hit the double bicep.
She would stop talking and just get back and flip her hair and pose because she was lost and couldn't remember what to say. And I bet you Cody was doing some ventriloquism and talk about the giant.
So let me stop you real quick, because she's now on the staging area. Cody's still in the ring. Cody is has this look on his face, like you said, like, oh my God, what is going on?
And this
here?
has taken a long time.
It has gone on for so long that it went from this is bad to this is amazingly bad. Fantastically bad. And
see, I didn't like it that much at that point because I've been out there on live TV for some segments when other people shit the bed, and it just seems like forever.
How many times has this happened to Cody, where he gets in the ring, he gets his long entrance with the dramatic music that goes on longer than anyone else's music before you see him, and then he finally gets in the ring, and he's on the mic for 30 seconds, and boom, Jake the Snake Roberts shows up.
Yeah.
Like, this has happened before. So she's now on the entrance ramp area, the entrance way. It's not really a ramp. She's standing there. Cody's in the ring. My first thought after she says Shaq is, thank God they're going to do Shaq and Cody and not Shaq and Jericho. Thank God they didn't let Jericho latch onto this.
Well, but now, do you even think, how old is Shaquille O'Neal now?
He's, I would guess, at least 45. At minimum 45, maybe closer to 50.
And 300 and some pounds easily and whatever the fuck. Do you think even Cody can get this done?
I don't know. He's been teasing wanting to do something in wrestling forever, and I don't think he's ever actually done anything. But she's on the stage, and I'm like, this is amazing. And then somehow, it got turned up to 10, and it became all-time classic. It became one of the greatest things ever. And it was easily the best thing in AEW. I didn't expect this.
From an unlikely source.
An unlikely source, and I'm not going to spoil it, I'm going to let you have this, but an unlikely source came out and delivered the promo of a lifetime.
Thank you for the handoff. Ladies and gentlemen, as this Linda Miles-looking woman named Jane Cargill was standing there and had dropped the Shaquille O'Neal bomb, here comes Brandy Rhodes. And she's pissed. And she launches into old Jane with the goddamnedest promo that I've ever heard in my life. She meant every word of it. She was cussing. She was pissed off. She told her everything that she should shove up her ass and exactly which fucking direction to do it in. I mean, it was great. And it was Brandy, and it was great. I mean, her promos go from sounding like Meryl Streep to sounding like Butch Reed.
That was it. It was Butch Reed 85 calling Dark Journey a heifer on Mid-South TV.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Incredible.
Oh,
and where did this come from?
Right then, I wrote Ole, Piper, Foley, CM Punk, Brandy. In the all-time pantheon of promos in pro wrestling. And then, as she basically told her to get her bitch ass out of her building there, that here comes Jerry Lynn to separate.
Oh, no. You're skipping over some of the most important parts.
Okay, well, go ahead.
While Brandy is cutting this, the greatest promo of her life on this woman, and totally believable and great, Cody's never cut a promo this good.
No.
This woman is standing there and she's posing and she's smiling.
You don't know how to sell it.
And she's not so then Brandy says, convincingly, you better get out of here. But then Brandy gets out of there and turns around and starts walking away, and the girl just pats Brandy on the ass. And that caused Jerry Lynn and all the officials to run out.
And that's the thing. If you'll notice, they pick their spots on when to run out. They did it another time on this program, but so Jerry Lynn's separating the women, and then they can't leave well enough alone. Because then Cody's still in the ring watching all this go on. Cage attacks Cody from behind and power bombs him, and here comes Starks, and they're kicking the shit out of Cody. Well, then Darby Allin's music starts playing, and they just freak out and stop beating up on Cody, and Darby Allin is 100 feet away.
They stop beating up on Cody when the music hits for this brooding twink to walk as slow as he can down the entire building to get to the ring.
And then he rolls in the ring and they charge at him and he hits him with his thumbtack jacket. He's wearing jackets covered in thumbtacks. Everybody has one of those. They were all the rage back a few years ago, and you got one sitting in your closet. And he hits them with his thumbtack jacket, and then the fucking heels bail out and are leaving Taz and Starks.
Taz is standing on the stage saying, like, okay, all right.
Yeah, Taz, come on back. The guy with the 150-pound guy with the thumbtack-covered jacket just beat up my giant bodybuilder, my sexy, Ricky Starks, stroke daddy. And besides the fact that they waited for him to come in the ring, stopped beating up the guy that they were beating up and waited for him to come in the ring and then got beat up by him, then if they hadn't blown enough heat off of these heels already, as the heels are leaving, going down the fucking tube, somebody had told Will Hobbs in the back, hey, Will, go out there and throw a chair at him, because here comes Will Hobbs. The heels are leaving, going down the fucking passageway, and Hobbs comes out and throws a chair at him. You better get out of here. It's like the time that Heyman threw the garbage can at Ric Flair after Flair had already left the room.
And everyone calls him Will Hobbs except for Jim Ross, who keeps calling him Willie Hobbs.
Willie Hobbs, baby. Willie Hobbs, back in here, Dusty saying it. Dusty would call Willie Hobbs the same thing. As a matter of fact, Dusty would have written Willie Hobbs on his lineups. He had nicknames for everybody, either initials or nicknames. Dennis Condrey was DC Cab because that movie came out and Dusty saw it on a fucking pay-per-view channel in the hotel one night. And Dennis Condrey forever after became DC Cab on the lineups.
Oh, awful movie.
Anyway, so that was certainly a segment of renown. We'll remember that one.
That was the greatest segment in AEW history. It hit every, like, if you were someone who enjoyed AEW, there was something for you. For me, it was everything. Like I said, it started out with, okay, let's see where this is going. And then, what the hell is this? And then, oh my God, I can't believe this is still going. And then out of nowhere, this is one of the greatest things ever. And then right back to AEW, where just unnecessary stuff is happening that makes no sense. This was my favorite thing in the history of AEW. I love this segment. I wish it would have kept going. I wish it never ended. I wish it was still happening right now. Nothing else on this show was able to stand up to this. It was all downhill from here. And you know what? I got to agree with you. You say it. It's always Cody's segments that are the greatest. This was...
I don't know if they planned it this way, though, that this was be the greatest for this reason.
This was the best segment in modern wrestling in forever. This was so good. I watched it over and over. I'm going to watch it again after we're done recording. I love this segment. I encourage everyone, go out of your way
but Boogie,
to see this.
I've looked in bars. I've looked in cars. Yeah, this... Oh, boy.
The balance of power changed with this segment.
Honestly, I thought this was kind of what it must have been, right? But
no, apparently it wasn't.
Brandy Runnels having the greatest promo in the history of wrestling. Is this equivalent to a rookie golfer hitting a hole-in-one?
It's like when all of a sudden Sonny King would hit like a great promo. Like all of a sudden Sonny King...
That's an interesting comparison.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden, Sonny King, you'd be like captivated by what he said.
Yeah.
And then every other time you'd be like, oh my God, this guy sucks on the mic.
Anyway, speaking of sucking on the mic, the next up was Officer Bar Brady with Moxley. For people who like that kind of thing, it's the kind of thing those people like. He's talking about pain and how tough he is. But I wanted to see the next match because I thought we've got a Rhodes in a bunkhouse match. This could be something. And as soon as they went to the arena, I wrote the following words. Oh, fuck. Now they've made the bunkhouse match a cartoon. They had set the ring up with bales of hay in the corner and saddles. And a guitar was there, which would come into play. And what the... It looked like one of the hog pen matches in the WWF. It looked like it should have been on Raw in the 90s with the Godwins. Bales of hay in the court for a bunkhouse match. And I'm not surprised they did this, except Dustin was in it, and he knows. Even Cody wasn't around. He's not old enough to see it really firsthand and absorbed it, but Dustin was. But I guess Dustin has either said, fuck it, it has changed, the kids are right these days, or he just didn't want to fucking tell them and hurt their feelings. But this was screwy. The reason, and they gave JR and Tony both a chance to explain the bunkhouse match, and they referenced Nelson Royal, and I'm sure everybody out there remembers Nelly at the drop of a hat. But all they had to say was a bunkhouse match came from it's a country western version of a street fight, because Dusty loved cowboys and loved John Wayne. And Eddie Graham did a lot of this type of thing. A bunkhouse match when the Cowboys were in the bunkhouse years ago and they got mad at each other. Then all the fucking Cowboys would get around in a circle, and the two guys that were mad, they'd have a fight in the middle. Come as you are. Whatever was in your pockets, use your belt, use your spurs, your cowboy boots, whatever's handy, and the winner's the guy that fucking kicks the other guy's ass. Simple, right? There's nothing about bales. Why did they have a ladder in the bunkhouse? Did the bunkhouse people need a ladder? Except maybe to get in the top bunk.
Why did they have a bunkhouse match? Have they had a regular match, these two teams?
Well, no, because they've got a goddamn idiot Mark Booker that likes stipulations. And it's like when Russo used to love the idea that Piper hit Snuka with a coconut. So let's hit people with coconuts. He didn't understand why it fit in that instance. But the Butcher and the Baker with the Candlestick Maker at ringside against Dusty Rhodes and QT Marshall. And yeah, there's the venomous grudge they have because Allie, the bunny, whatever, in one of her babyface incarnations, ran up QT Marshall's credit card on buying herself shit and then went back to fucking the fishmonger, whichever one. But
couldn't you file a complaint with the credit card company?
Well, of course you can. The bunkhouse match has turned, in their mind, they turned it into every garbage indie match ever, where they set furniture up and throw people onto it with the addition of hay. That's it. And it wasn't a violent fight like Dusty did, like the bunkhouse matches were that they're trying to take off on, as Gomer would say. It wasn't. It was violent when they started bleeding and violent when they were taking unnecessary risks, but the whole thing was phrased and draped in comedy, at least for the visuals of the bales of hay and shit. You can't have a serious fight with hay. It looked like a riot broke out on the set of Hee Haw. Oh my God, and Roy Clark comes in with a guitar, and there's Junior Samples with a fork, and holy shit, the Hager twins have just taken their spurs off, and Grandpa Jones looks like his dick's falling off. The fuck? And then QT was bleeding. I think they hit QT with a guitar. Why was there a guitar in the bunkhouse? Jeff Jarrett or none of these singing cowboys was in this match. Guitars, it's a whole nother gimmick. They handcuffed Dustin to the corner somehow, went to a break, but later on I guess his handcuffs broke, either accidentally or on purpose, but they go through the break, they come back. Butcher's hitting QT Marshall with hay. There was a big ladder in the ring. And as I said, unless it was the top bunk, I don't think they need a 15-foot ladder in the bunkhouse. And they're getting this juice, and they're cutting their heads in a comedy match. I love juice in bunkhouse matches and cage matches and shit in serious fights. But now they're doing ha-ha shit and taking dangerous bumps instead of they've lost the plot on a conflict, but they're still cutting their head and risking hurting themselves. And then Dustin and the Butcher go to the stage and the fire extinguisher spot to blind the Butcher so Dustin can bulldog Butcher off the platform they were on through a plywood crash area that apparently was constructed and set up there specifically for them to take a bump through it. When they showed the wide shot, was there any other reason why that box of nothing, but the wooden box of nothing in it that they could fall through was there for any other reason? What purpose could it have served?
It was balsa wood too.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a wooden crate, but it's balsa wood on the top, so it wouldn't hold anything, and there was nothing in it when they went through it, except shit to break their fall. And then the fishmonger was bleeding a goddamn gusher. QT dropped an elbow off the top of the 15-foot ladder, and what a fucking elbow, and that was a 2 count. Then they had chains and chairs and garbage cans and a ladder in the ring, and they set up the 2 chairs so that they could do a double what the fuck on Dustin through the chairs, but QT saved him. This was not a street fight using objects. They're mad at the furniture, so they set it up and then throw the opponents into the furniture. And it ended up QT hit the baker, and the baker knocked Bunny off the apron. She went through a table. A 120-pound woman had to take a bump off the apron through a table. So unless she shows up for the next 6 months in a body cast, then that's phony. And of course, if she did, that would cover up the only reason why she's on the program to begin with. And Dustin and QT both pinned the baker. It was every garbage indie match with hay and stunts. Bunkhouse matches were not stunt shows. They were fights with weapons that might be laying around or that you might have in your pocket if you were wearing blue jeans, or maybe you take off your belt or whatever the fuck. But god damn it. It's all the same now.
Yeah, this was not good. And I don't know, if you're going to do a match where you're going to let guys really go crazy and beat the shit out of each other and have blood on TV, you shouldn't waste it on this feud. Where again, all of a sudden the Bunny showed up with QT, was never really explained by the commentators. And then she started teaming with Brandy. And then all of a sudden she's back with the Butcher and the Blade and Eddie Kingston. And then they say she ran up all of his credit cards. And then that was the point where it was like, enough! We need a bunkhouse match! There was never a match. They go right to the bunkhouse, and, you know, it's been a while since I've been in a bunkhouse. I guess they have guitars and ladders and all these things there now. Hay, and it was raining, so it's wet hay. This was just
I forgot about that. Yeah, wet hay.
This was just not... Yeah, it was raining. I mean, later on when they do the thing with the inner circle, the funny thing is they release the balloons and they fly right out of the building.
No, I made mention of that. So did the announcers, by the way. But anyway, before we get to that...
Horrible, though. This was just not... This was not good. And it went on a long time.
I like Dustin. I like QT Marshall. But once again, as you said, these shows are all underneath preliminary mid-card talent doing bloody angles, hitting each other with furniture, beating each other with lead pipes. If let the main event guys do it if you have to fucking do it. But there's angle after brawl after fight after, none of it means a thing. Nothing registers. Speaking of nothing meaning anything, the legitimate popcorn fart finish that you just prefaced to this next segment, MJF's induction into the Inner Circle. Did you notice now the Inner Circle has a podium? They get a podium.
Was it theirs or was it MJF's? Because he's already shown that he had a podium.
No, it was because it was the Inner Circle logo on the podium.
Oh, okay.
Jericho comes out with everybody but Sammy Guevara. We know Sammy doesn't like MJF. Then he brings MJF out. MJF, again, great delivery on everything he does. He did a poem I didn't get, and I guess somebody else wrote it. Who would know that? I don't know. Did you know that?
Younger people would know that those were Drake lyrics. He's a popular musician right now.
What's his last name?
In real life, I don't know. His performance name is Drake.
What's his first name?
Drake.
Oh, so he works for Vince McMahon. He's just got one name.
Maybe that's why Vince does it. He's trying to keep up with the kids.
Anyway, here's the problem I had with this. Now they've ruined MJF for me in this environment, in this angle, because now I know all these heels are out there saying all this shit on purpose to entertain me instead of being themselves and doing what they would do. And now I can't get into it because it's just, they're trying to be so entertaining. And the big finale of this, and I go on and rant and rave about how great MJF is, etc. No, he didn't even get to do anything here. And the big finale was he gave them tickets to Las Vegas for next week. And announced it was Jericho's birthday, and they dropped apparently $2,500, according to the announcers, worth of balloons that blew past the camera in 2 seconds and departed. And the camera's trying to chase them in the shot. And the wind was so strong, and boom, and the confetti blew away, and it was just, oh, well, it worked in rehearsal. The announcers are joking about it, and it was over. That was it. That was the whole segment.
So I guess this means we're going to get a goofy segment next week of the Inner Circle hanging out in Las Vegas.
Well, they're not going to be in Las Vegas, are they?
I don't know. It's Tony Khan's money.
Well, fuck.
No, excuse me. It's Tony Khan's father's money.
All right, but they're not going to be in Las Vegas because they tape their television in Florida. They would have to fly all those guys out to Las Vegas in the middle of a pandemic to shoot them in Las Vegas. And then who knows what the fuck kind of hogwash we might get.
Okay, let's stop right now. Let's play some bets here. I know we already did my bookie earlier. Do you think that the Inner Circle will be in a segment next week on the show? We don't know when it's taped. We don't have a source right now like we did for the Matt Hardy segment.
Probably will soon.
Do you think they will be in Vegas, yes or no?
I guess they probably will now that you bring it up.
It's going to be a bunch of goofy stuff with them.
Sammy and MJF will probably try to throw each other off the fucking Statue of Liberty out there.
I think it'll be a bunch of goofy segments with them on the strip acting like fools. And again, when you hit it perfectly earlier. There was a time where heels made you want to hate them. Not where heels were just doing comedy and I guess you're supposed to boo them because they're acting like dicks, but
they're acting like funny dicks on purpose for your benefit, and it's obvious.
Yeah, there's nothing heelish about any of this. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, AEW doesn't have babyface and heels. Bullshit. Clearly defined babyfaces, clearly defined heels. This is ridiculous. They've ruined MJF the last few months because he got caught up in this vortex of Chris Jericho bullshit.
Well, speaking of being caught up in a vortex of bullshit, Officer Barbrady was at the locker room door again of the Hardley boys. I mean the Young Bucks. And of course, so they have to do the gag where they open the door and he flinches because they double super kicked him last time when he went backwards in a fucking paralyzed state and didn't even drop the microphone. And they cut the same promo they always do. Balding is there, completely ungenuine, doesn't mean anything he says and doesn't try to make you believe it, and it's obvious. And then Pieface did the majority of it because he's the one that thinks he has personality. And to me, they pretty much blew FTR off. Well, we'll have a rematch sometime, but next week we're going to take on the team of Top Flight. Is this another deal where didn't we just see this on the other channel with Spin the Wheel where they want to wrestle job guys? Who has ever heard of they billboarded this like somebody would give a shit or like they were being heels trying to exaggerate the importance of their opponents. But this entire promo was a waste of television time, and they billboarded a match against a team that nobody's ever fucking seen or heard of before. That they supposedly found.
That's it. That's the difference. Johnny Gargano has this wheel, and he obviously wants to fight the small job guy for NXT. The Young Bucks are saying, well, we're executive vice presidents. We've been scouting tag teams, and this tag team looks really good, so we're going to bring them in and give them a chance. And there's not enough to say about how bad on the mic Matt Jackson is. He's the worst promo in all of wrestling because he comes across as completely phony. There's nothing realistic about anything he says. The way he behaves, he doesn't know how to just act natural in front of a camera.
No, they're putting on some kind of fucking Dennis the Menace, out of control child vibe. Like, we don't do what we're told.
He's the worst promo in the business because he keeps getting opportunity after opportunity. He just does not have the chops. He can't do it. Not that Nick can, because Nick has zero charisma on the mic. And he's back there cruising on Lake Havasoma. He's just almost fucking done. And when he wears that hat, he really does look like the middle schooler you always call them. He looks ridiculous. But Matt Jackson, Matt Buck, Matt Massey, Dick the Buck, whatever you want to call him, Buck Hogan.
Buck Hogan.
He is so bad on the mic that it's a real negative to the company. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Awful. Just terrible.
Well, anyway, the next match was Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard versus Scorpio Sky. And honestly, I was running long, and I said, I really don't have time for this. It's nice to give Scorpio Sky a nice little singles win here because, you know, he deserves it and they're going to do something with him, but I'm not just going to just watch this whole thing. So I fast-forwarded it, and I found out that Shawn Spears beat him. Tully fucking leaves a gimmick in the ring, then goes and distracts the referee for 20 full seconds. While Spears, in slow motion, gets this gimmick and puts it in his glove. Scorpio Sky, Tully had thrown him a gimmick, but he throws his away and then turns around and Spears knocks him out. This was done in slow motion.
Why did he throw the gimmick to Sky?
Because somebody came up with a finish that's too cute for their own good. He didn't need to, but somebody, well, if we do that old shit where he just leaves the gimmick for the heel, well, let's throw a wrinkle in there. So he threw the gimmick to Scorpio Sky, knowing that Scorpio Sky wouldn't use a gimmick and he would be distracted by it and then throw it away, and then he'd get punched out. But, oh, for fuck's sake. I say it out loud and it sounds stupid. I can't believe they actually go over these things in the back. Point is, it distracted too long. Spears took too long. It was too complicated. It was a hat on a hat. I don't know who the fuck came up with this finish. Scorpio Sky, I thought, was supposed to be a future singles world champion. And Shawn Spears has spent the past 6 months in the witness protection program, and now he comes and he knocks him out on television. Next, Kenny Olivier had run off from interviewer Dasha in the back, so they sent Bar Brady to run Kenny down. I wish Bar Brady had been driving in the car when he ran Kenny down. Kenny Olivier, go back and watch this promo again, anybody that cares to. I know it's tough. But now that I'm about to say this, Brian, did you know this? He more or less sang in a lilting melodic manner a promo about Moxley and the title that made absolutely no one want to see a match between the two of them, and it made it sound as dangerous as a pinochle tournament at the seniors' home. And while he was doing it, he was just announcing like that and this, and he verbally twinkle toeses.
That is funny. That's exactly what he does.
Have you noticed it?
Now I do. I never really put my finger on it before, but it's exactly how he talks.
Verbal twinkle toes. He's singing his promo in a lilting manner because he has absolutely no threat whatsoever in his voice.
With that said, he's a better promo than Matt Jackson.
Well, yeah, because you really believe that he's a fucking lilting Casper milquetoast, milksop, mush mouth, verbal twinkle toes. You really believe that? Anyway,
he really does. Now that you say that, I'm picturing all of his promos in my head.
So the next match, Brian, is a match that we've all been waiting for. Tay Conti with Anna Jay versus Red Velvet with Brandy.
Oh, boy.
I executed the AEW girls rule until I saw whether Brandy was going to speak again or not. I fast-forwarded this. The heel girls were in the dork order, I thought.
Well, I think...
Their mention of this?
I may be wrong. Anna Jay is in the dark order. I know Tay Conti, accepted an offer from them weeks ago, but I don't think she's actually a member of the dark order.
Well, then why is Anna Jay out there with Tay Conti?
Because or Tay Conti. What did I call her? I called her
Tay. Tay. I don't know. You say Tay. I say tie her up. Tie her down.
I think I didn't watch that women's tag team tournament they did, so I may be wrong here, but I think maybe they were partners before Anna Jay went to the dark side.
Well, I don't care anyway. Where is Mr. Boring Brody Lee, by the way? We haven't been seeing him lately. Is he quarantined over with Jelly and his filthy infested friends?
I have no idea where he is.
Ain't seen him in a while, have we?
Been a while.
Been a while. In the back, MJF told Sammy Guevara, apparently by email, to meet at the beach. That's why Sammy wasn't there earlier. They tried to do the 4 flat tires promo, but they couldn't figure it out how to phrase it. This show has headed straight down the porcelain throne ever since Brandy channeled her inner promo of a lifetime. The main event of this journey into hysteria. Didn't we just see this? Was this not a rematch of something that we actively tried not to watch before?
This was a rematch of the first round match from the #1 contenders tournament, but then Rey Fenix got hurt even though he won. So his brother Penta, even though he lost in the first round, went on to the second round against Kenny Omega.
Okay, now we got to watch it again. The point is Felix against Pentagonal, Octagonal, El Hexagonal. They're a tag team. They're brothers. They're in the same heel group. It's not a tournament anymore. Now they're just fighting again, and they have to ask Kingston, well, why are your guys fighting? Well, we just like to fight, because he had no good fucking answer for it, because it didn't make any sense. This is not a tournament where they're going to get somewhere. They're just brothers, partners, and heel stablemates wrestling each other, because the booker is a video game wrestling mark who wants to see 2 guys in masks doing video game moves. So this is why we have to look at this. I cannot watch. I've tried to watch a little bit of it, and I just say, you know what the fuck? I'm sorry. I know lucha is an art form in their country, and they've been brought up on it, and they respect it. But today's modern lucha looks even phonier than fucking lucha of the 70s and 80s looked, and that was the reason why that most American fans and or American wrestlers scoffed at lucha, because it looked phony. And we've gone over the reasons for a lot of that, from the hard rings to the style that was developed in the whole 9 yards. But the people in Mexico believe in it because it's their culture. They can't see it. It's like Steve Austin stomping a mud hole in people when the stomps looked like shit. It was Austin doing it. You couldn't see through it because he was part of the culture. That shit don't fly with American eyes. And I cannot watch this phony-looking shit. It's like watching ugly Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders practice their routines. There's no effort at a contest. It's flips, moves, and bumps. It doesn't make any sense because it's brothers doing this to each other, and tag team partners, and heel stablemates, so there's nobody to even cheer for. They just do their shit to each other over and over again. And I can't fucking do it. Especially when everybody else now is doing the same thing that the lucha guys do, even when they're Americans. Flips, cartwheels, and fucking nip-ups and monkey flips. Finally, Pentagon won. Kingston congratulated him. Kingston kicked Felix out of the ring, literally kicked him out of the ring, and starts to heel on Pentagon's brother, wherever that's going. And then suddenly, here comes Pac back. The Pac is back. And we've love Pac. He looks in great physical shape. His work is tremendous. He's got a nice, great face, right? He looks like something. I'm not knocking Pac, but he runs toward the ring. And not only every referee on the roster, but 5 guys wearing referee shirts we've never seen before, suddenly are there to separate them. They do angles weekly where people are fucking castrated with fishing knives live on television, and nobody comes out. Nobody even rings a bell, much less steps in the ring to help. And this one guy comes running to the ring, and there's 20 people to stop it before he gets there. And then they have to tease the pull apart way too long. They booked Pac versus the Butcher for next week. Now we come to find out this is what Tony Khan was talking about the balance of power shifting and everything changing. Because apparently he's as big of a Pac mark as he is for pockets. And so he pushes his favorites. I'm not saying Pac is not deserving. I'm not saying Pac shouldn't be one of the top guys here in his company as it stands. But who truly gives 2 shits about Pac versus the fucking Butcher? Because here's another, the heels fighting amongst themselves. The former heel group of Pac and the Lucha Brothers. The English guy that decided to hang out with 2 Mexicans. That happens in real life all the time. Suddenly now, Pac's on the outside of this group. The two Mexicans are fighting with each other. Kingston's running the show, but he wants to get rid of Felix and suck up to Penta. Can we just stick a babyface in here somewhere just as a placeholder? I don't get this whole fucking thing. What'd you think? That was the main event, by the way, on this show.
I didn't really like it. Now, I know I'm in the minority when it comes to AEW fans because they all love Penta and Rey Fenix. I'll admit, Rey Fenix does some spectacular stuff. And I can understand if you're someone really into spots and tricks, you'd really like Rey Fenix. I don't get why anyone likes Penta at all. I don't know what I'm missing. I'm missing something. Because usually even with the ones I don't like, I can understand why people are into them. Penta just bores the shit out of me. I've never seen anything with him that I was like, wow, this guy's great. So I don't know what I'm missing. These two guys are brothers. They've been tag teams. They had that one match in the tournament. Now all of a sudden they're ripping each other's masks off.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a brotherly match. It was like, I'm going to rip your mask and you're going to kick me in the balls.
And why not save that? Well, you could say this about the bunkhouse. You could say this about so many different things. Why not save that until it actually means something? Why throw it away?
They're never going to get there. We keep saying that, but I've come to the realization none of this is ever going to mean anything because he doesn't know how to make it mean anything, and they're never going to have the patience to get that far.
And then in terms of Pac coming out after Eddie Kingston kicks Rey Fenix out of the ring and says, you don't need your brother to Penta. Penta really doesn't react at all. I don't know if he's supposed to be slow or what his deal is. And then Pac comes out, and man, he comes out and he looks like a star. He handles himself. He has intensity. It would probably be a bigger surprise if we didn't see that promo from him last week on the show. But this does nothing to change the balance of power anywhere. Nothing. So, I think Tony Khan's stupid for overhyping this. And it was all downhill after Brandy. And it was nothing else on the rest of the show that made me want to see more next week. The Brandy segment, the Cody segment, even the Brian Cage match side out. I'm going to include the Brian Cage match and the Cody segment as like one portion of the show.
Yeah.
Everything else after that, I really didn't like. But that one portion was good.
Maybe all this time that we've been knocking Brandy for trying to figure out a way to shoehorn herself into the show, we should have realized she was just trying to save this fiasco all along. We didn't give her enough chance.
Well, the problem was Brandy never figured out what she was. She was Cody's valet and a babyface in that role because Cody was. And then she decided she was a heel, and she had her faction where she was cutting people's hair with the Awesome Kong. And then she went right back to babyface. And then she was heel. They've never figured out how to use her. And then
sometimes she was an executive in one segment and then a heel talent on the other segment.
Yeah. But she was, there's nothing.
Just let her come out and tell a bitch off.
This was great. This was so great. But the rest of the show sucked.
I'll tell you what, if they want to draw some money, they need to get Brandy versus Rebby. I'll buy 2 tickets to see that one.
Can Rebby cut a promo? I've never seen her.
I don't know, but it sounds like that it'd be stiff if she could.
Well, Twitter promos are different than real promos.
Well, I just want to see the cat fight then. I have a feeling they could make us believe it. Hi. Closing thoughts on do we have the ratings on these two fiascos?
Yeah, actually, they just came in a little while ago.
What did Jane Cargill get the rating of the night?
Well, let me start by saying AEW, obviously this is the first television show off of a pay-per-view that their fans loved. It was a really hot pay-per-view to the AEW core audience.
Wow. But Trump got those 70 million votes too, so there's no accounting for some people's taste.
So you would think that audience would say, oh my God, I want to see what's next. Like the Raw after WrestleMania, that's a big deal.
Yeah. So you're saying it's going to be a good number here.
NXT, 632.
Yeah.
AEW 764.
130,000.
And not much of a bump. Is this, I don't even know. Is this up or down from last week?
It's the same numbers every week. 600 and something and 700 and something. Because it's the same people every week. Because they're the only ones who can put up with this shit.
But the other thing is,
You have to grudge watch these programs. They're not good on their own.
You know, Mid-South Wrestling, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, not to put you over, WCW TV when it was really good, Raw when it was good, every wrestling show when it was good.
Continental
would leave you.
Crockett's syndicated show back in the early 80s.
You couldn't wait until the next week. You couldn't wait
Memphis
to see
TV forever.
Boy, AEW, it's just a collection of shit, and they try to hype you for what's coming next week, but they do such a bad job of setting things up and leaving you with anticipation. Just not good. Not good. Tony Khan is an awful booker. He writes bad TV.
Not good. Very, very bad.
Not good. Not good. So my two highlights were the Cody / whatever her name was / Brandy into the Darby thing, that segment, which is one of the greatest things ever. And also the bizarre Asian man coming down on NXT with the light show and handing a demonic envelope to Boa. That's another one that's a winner. And Damian Priest yelling at Gargano and laughing at him. Those are my 3 highlights of this week in wrestling.
Well, folks, that'll about do it then. But you can join us next week here on The Experience, where we hopefully will give you updates on if anybody's bothered to tell Fat Ass that he lost yet, and some more losing propositions on our wrestling programs. And this coming week on Monday, we'll have the drive-through, your questions, and even some of my answers, and all of Brian's programs, the YouTube, if you get to missing us in the middle of the night, you need to hear our reassuring voices. And otherwise than that, for Brian, I'm Jim, for the entire staff here, and for 4 Seasons Total Landscaping in Philadelphia. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.